Chapter 1. His mind was still replaying the last scene of his death like a movie. The sky was dyed red with blood. The battlefield was littered with broken limbs, the neighing of war horses, and the mourning of victims. Even the wind that blew across the land carried the smell of blood. But no one cared. The two brothers who were fighting side by side just a moment ago were now facing each other silently. At this moment, even the air seemed to be frozen. Not far from their feet was the corpse of a ferocious-looking man. It was covered in blood and was nowhere to be found. It was the leader of the Black Wind Mountain stronghold, Black Lion Song, a king-level expert and ranked 19th on the Six Doors bounty list. Underneath the man's corpse was a purple armor that shone brightly. What? The one who spoke was a handsome young man with delicate features. He was tall and straight, wearing the beast cloud devouring armor and holding the cloud dragon halberd. The young man was heavily injured and half-knelt on the ground. Half of his body leaned powerlessly against the blood-stained halberd. Blood flowed out his chest and soaked through the armor. Upon closer inspection, it was a thin sword that had pierced through his chest from the back. The hilt of the sword was broken into two. It seemed to have pierced his body from the back. Opposite the handsome young man stood a middle-aged man. He had a beard, thick eyebrows, and big eyes. The middle-aged man wore a mithril chainmail and held a gilded spear in his hand. The sword at his waist was only left in its sheath. It was as if it was telling the cruel truth. To live better. The middle-aged man's voice was hoarse, but his tone was firm. It was as if he was answering the handsome young man's question or convincing himself. The middle-aged man only said 2 short sentences and then stopped talking. He only stared calmly at the half-kneeling young man. Just for that. The handsome young man's face was full of mockery. He pointed at the purple armor under the man's corpse, his emotions stirred. Just for a piece of purple gold equipment? Ha, what a joke. The young man's voice became unusually cold. I really didn't expect it to have such a magical power, to be able to make people lose their minds to this extent. My big brother, who has always loved and respected me, stabbed me in the back. To be able to make you, who is revered as Little Song Jiang, abandon your dignity. The handsome youth was extremely weak right now, but his black eyes were still as clear as ever. It was a pity that it lacked the sharpness of the past and added a lingering sense of self-mockery. Big brother, no matter what, this is just a game. One day, we will all leave this place and return to the real world. I didn't expect that in the end, our friendship of 5 years is not as precious as a piece of game equipment. Third brother, I'm sorry. Sorry, what a joke. Big brother, this is the last time I call you big brother. Greed is the original sin. I don't blame you. Suddenly, the handsome young man became abnormally calm, and there was not a trace of emotion on his face. Her eyes were as deep as the sea, and no one could see through her inner world. Those who were familiar with him were no stranger to this expression of the young man. It was just like his title, Two-Faced Azura. When it was cold, it made enemies tremble in fear. When it was warm, it made friends feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. The young man glanced at the middle-aged man and said coldly, "But next time, I will kill you." He used his left hand to slowly and tightly hold the sharp sword that had pierced through his chest. The sharp blade cut his palm, and blood slowly flowed out. The young man's expression was still so calm, without a trace of emotion, as if he couldn't feel the pain. With a ripping sound, the sharp sword was quickly pulled out of his body. The sharp blade pierced through the heart and through the armor. Burning blood spurted out and shot into the sky, quietly blooming like a youth in full bloom. The scene froze. The sky was dyed with blood, and the hot blood was sprinkled into the sky. It seemed so insignificant, so stubborn. The young man in the scene didn't seem to be him. Just like that, Ouyang Shua silently watched himself fall to the ground, unable to get up until he bled to death. This wasn't the first time Ouyang Shua had reincarnated, but it was definitely the most painful reincarnation. Reincarnation meant that he had to start from the beginning. Unlike other games, every time a player died and reincarnated in this game, their character's level would be reset to 0, and all their equipment would be dropped. It was an extremely cruel death penalty. I won't be defeated by betrayal. I want to take back everything that belongs to me. Thinking of his sister who was still waiting for him in the city, Ouyang Shuo cast aside all distracting thoughts and made up his mind. He made a declaration of his destiny and slowly opened his heavy eyelids. The white ceiling was spotless. There was nothing on the smooth metal wall. There was no other furniture in the room other than a bed. It was extremely simple. A game poster was pasted on the opposite wall. Apart from that, there were no other decorations. "Where's this?" Ouyang Shuo couldn't help but mutter to himself. His face was filled with confusion. This definitely wasn't the reincarnation hall. The reincarnation hall had always been a place filled with ghosts and demons. It was a place filled with eerie winds all year round. It definitely wasn't peaceful. Could it be that he had returned to the real world? That couldn't be right. If he had gone offline and returned to the real world, he should be lying in the gaming cabin and not lying on the bed like this. His gaze inadvertently swept across the huge game poster on the wall. Ouyang Shuo felt as if he had been struck by lightning. It was too familiar. How could he not be familiar? That was the game poster that he had played for 5 years. The first MMORPG in history that combines personal adventure, territory construction, and dimensional war all in one. Earth on 1E. It's scheduled to officially open beta on January 1st, 2190. Please look forward to it. The eye-catching slogan made Ouyang Shuo dumbfounded. His thoughts stopped for a moment, as if his optical computer had crashed. Oh, he remembered now. This was his home 5 years ago. The dormant memories flooded back like a tidal wave. Ouyang Shuo, who had long gotten used to the game world, returned to the real world. In 2170 AD, scientists had observed abnormal fluctuations coming from the Earth's core. After 3 months of repeated observations and complicated calculations by the team of scientists, they had deduced a shocking conclusion. 30 years later, the Earth's core would completely explode. At that time, the magma in the Earth's mantle would break through the Earth's crust without any reservations. The Earth would become a flaming planet like the Sun. When this observation report was sent to the Federation government, everyone was in despair. After nearly 200 years of rapid development in space technology, long-distance interstellar navigation and wormhole travel could already be carried out. However, humans had yet to find a habitable planet like Earth. The only base on Mars could only accommodate a limited population, and it also required continuous support from Earth's mother planet. If Earth was really going to be destroyed, then humans would have no place to live. The path of retreat had been decided, and the future was unpredictable. In desperation, just as the Federation government was preparing to launch the Mars terraforming plan, a miracle happened. The latest image from the Explorer showed that a new habitable planet had appeared in the Explorer's field of vision. The Federation government didn't have time to celebrate. A huge interstellar immigration plan was drawn up in less than 3 months. The new habitable planet was named Hope. The code name of the interstellar immigration plan was naturally Hope. It was the last hope of humanity. In order to prevent society from panicking, the immigration plan was strictly kept secret. The entire plan was divided into many independent parts and handed over to different organizations or departments. It could be said that other than the Federation president, no one else knew the complete contents of the plan. Earth on One, it was an important part of the Hope plan. From the moment it was born, it was naturally shrouded in a layer of mystery. There were countless conflicts of interest and compromises that revolved around the planning and design of the game. It was far more exciting than the melodramatic plots of television dramas. The specific details were not known to outsiders. The game map was completely created with Earth as a real template, and the area was expanded by 10 times. The game design team was only responsible for the design of the game's architecture and game modes. The specific game scenes and NPCs were derived from the various countries' historical data as a template. The design team scanned the various countries' historical images, texts, and cultural relics before importing them into Skynet's host, Gaia, to carry out intelligent deductions over a long period of time. Even the designers did not know the specific mission flow and detailed data parameters in the game. 15 years later, on January 1st, 2185, Earth on 1E began its top-secret closed beta testing. All the closed beta testers were required to sign a strict confidentiality agreement. In order to obtain the qualifications for the closed beta testing, the various factions naturally fought fiercely. Let's not talk about that. In order to ensure the game's relative fairness, Gaia created a separate piece of land. The closed beta map would not appear in the official game map. Through the closed beta, Gaia could continuously observe the player's in-game behavior and the NPC's responses. Based on a massive amount of first-hand observation data, Gaia constantly analyzed and summarized, constantly adjusting and perfecting the game settings. The closed beta was carried out in batches, each lasting for half a year. The personnel for each closed beta was different, and the content of the test was different as well. After a total of 8 closed beta tests over 4 years, Gaia completely shut down the game and carried out a year's worth of final deductions and improvements. It was scheduled to officially open beta on January 1st, 2190. At the time of release, even the closed beta testers did not know what changes would happen to the game. Everything was unknown. December 20th, 2189. Earth on 1's official website was officially released. The official website was split into 3 sections: the database, the merchant shop, and the forum. The database only had the basic information of the game's structure and no detailed information. The only item sold in the merchant shop was the game login 6 pod. The game pod was not graded, and it was sold at a unified price of 10 million credits. It accepted online pre-orders. The high price made a large number of ordinary players flinch. In addition, there was ridiculously little information about the game. Other than printing posters, there wasn't even a CG produced. It made everything seem abnormal. As a reincarnator, Ouyang Shuo knew that this abnormality was the result of the various factions and the Federation president's struggle and compromise. The goal was very simple. It was to deliberately delay the time it took for ordinary players to enter the game, so as to give their own personnel an advantage in the early stages. Of course, such a compromise required the various factions to pay a sufficient price. The price was so great that when the Federation announced the truth a year later, even the most radical Democrats would not be able to say a word. The tidal wave of memories was interrupted by a knock on the door. A clear child's voice came from outside the door. "Brother, lazy bum, wake up. Binger is hungry." He picked up the cell phone by the bedside and looked at the date. December 28th, 2189. This was the first 3 days of the game's server's opening. What a wonderful moment it was. Everything felt like a new lease on life. Everything that happened in the past was just a dream. Let it go with the wind. After his reincarnation, he was more familiar with the game than any other player or faction. Coupled with his good gaming talent, Ouyang Shuo believed that as long as he worked hard enough, he would definitely be able to make a new world in the game and shield his sister from the wind and rain. In this life, he didn't want his sister to wander around with him anymore. No, not only that, he wanted Bing to become a princess in the game, a real princess. Good Bing, brother will wake up now to make breakfast for you. Even he didn't realize that he was so relaxed and happy at this moment. P.S. Children who are chasing updates, do you still have free-like tickets and Chidian coins? The countdown to the 515 red envelope ranking is starting. I'm here to ask for more votes and like tickets for one last push. Chapter 2. Broadcast. Pay attention to Chidian reading and get the first-hand news of 515 red envelopes. Students who haven't grabbed red envelopes since the new year can now show their skills. After Ouyang Shuo got up, the bed and the bedding were automatically stored into the wall. This was the secret of not having a single piece of furniture in the room. In a highly modern society, everything was so intelligent. The house he was living in now was left by his parents. It was a relatively high-end house. When he came to the living room, his sister, Ouyang Bing, was sitting on the sofa and looking at him pitifully. Binger was only 8 years old this year. Her face was pink and jade-like, and her chubby little face made people want to pinch it. The little girl had her hair tied up in a bun. She was wearing a black puffy skirt, a pair of tight pants, and a pair of red leather shoes. She was so adorable that she was bursting with cuteness. Brother is a big lazy worm. I don't get up as early as Bing. Shoo. The little girl stood up and rolled her big eyes. She looked out of the door from time to time. She was obviously a smart girl. The brother and sister were too familiar with each other. When Ouyang Shua saw Binger's eyes, he knew what she was thinking. Today was the weekend, so he didn't have to go to work. Yesterday, he promised Binger that he would take her to the amusement park this weekend. Because of this, the little lazy pig, who needed him to wake her up every day, got up so early today for the first time. She even pretentiously dressed up. Ouyang Shua didn't tease her. He walked to the sofa and sat down. He picked up the little girl and put her on his lap. He rubbed his chin against the little lass's forehead, and the beard on his chin tickled her, causing her to giggle. Bad brother, you only know how to bully the cute Binger. Well, our cute little princess dressed up so beautifully today. Brother is going to make breakfast for you now. After breakfast, we'll go to the amusement park. Okay? Hearing that her brother didn't forget the previous agreement, the little girl was so happy that her eyes narrowed. She turned around and stamped Ouyang Shua's face with her saliva. Happy times always pass quickly. During the day, he took Binger to play in the children's park. At night, he took her to KFC to eat a family bucket. This made the little lass so happy that she couldn't even fall asleep. After telling her the third fairy tale, he finally coaxed her to sleep. In the dead of the night, Ouyang Shua finally had the time to organize the information about the game before his rebirth. At the same time, he made a simple plan for the future. He definitely had to quit his job. Anyway, he had only been working for less than half a year, and he didn't have much affection for the company. The most valuable asset in the family was the house they were currently living in. The savings left by his parents were almost gone after he graduated from university. This was also the reason why he was in such a hurry to find a job after graduation. In this highly intelligent era, more than 90% of jobs were replaced by machines. A large number of laborers were idle, and everyone had nothing to do. The federal government had no choice but to develop a complete social welfare system to ensure everyone's basic living security. He had single-handedly created a strict social supervision system, and the tentacles of the Skynet covered every corner of society. It was difficult for ordinary crimes to escape the surveillance of the Skynet. As a result, the wealth and political resources of society had become more and more divided. Some large consortiums and political families had become more and more entrenched and could not be shaken. At the same time, the aging of society increased. Young men and women were often unwilling to have children, and the world population had been declining for 20 consecutive years. Until now, the world population was less than 100 million, and the elderly accounted for more than 40%. Even the densely populated China region only had a population of 100 million. According to the current financial situation, Yangsha didn't even have the money to buy a gaming pod. Luckily, as someone who had been reborn, he could see the future that normal people couldn't. A year from now, all the fixed assets on Earth would become a pile of construction waste, worthless. Therefore, he planned to sell the house he was living in, get some money, and rent a house to live in. Ouyang Shua turned on his personal optical computer. He logged into the official real estate trading center, chose the emergency sale channel, and sold the house to the trading center at a price 10% lower than the market price. The information society was convenient. Ouyang Shua didn't need to leave his house, nor did he need to go to any government office. Because all his personal information was stored in the Skynet, as long as he passed the fingerprint and pupil verification, the transaction could be completed in half an hour. After the transaction was completed, Ouyang Shua's personal account immediately gained 2 million credits. While he still had time, Ouyang Shua began a search for a suitable rental house online. Binger was still in elementary school, and Ouyang Shua couldn't move too far away, so he could only look for a small district nearby, which was a bit difficult. According to the advanced search criteria, the system recommended a house in the Tianyuan district with 3 bedrooms and 1 living room, and the monthly rent was 3,000 credits. Coincidentally, Binger's elementary school was next to the Tianyuan district. If he lived there, it would be more convenient for him to go to school. However, this house was shared, and the landlord wasn't the owner, but a tenant. This made Ouyang a bit hesitant. With an attitude of giving it a try, Ouyang called the other party's video number. The person who appeared on the screen was a beautiful girl in her 20s, with an oval face and willow eyebrows. The girl seemed to have just taken a shower, as her hair was still wet. She was wearing a set of pink kitty pajamas and was a very cute little girl. This made Ouyang feel a bit awkward. After all, sharing a house only existed in romantic scenes and dramas, and it was very difficult to achieve in real life. On the contrary, the girl on the other side was more lively, and she took the initiative to greet him. "Hello. Who are you? May I ask who you are, and what can I do for you?" "Hello. I am contacting you through the rental website. I saw your rental information, and it is very suitable for my needs. However, I didn't expect you to be a girl, and I don't know if it's convenient." Ouyang directly replied, not holding any hope. "It's like this. Let me make it clear first. I have 2 rooms for rent at the same time. You are alone, so it's a bit strange." The girl didn't directly refuse, but instead asked such a question. "Huh, it's my fault for not saying it clearly. I have an 8-year-old sister. She is studying in Jiaozhou's 2nd elementary school near your district, so," Ouyang said hesitantly. Hearing that he had an 8-year-old sister, the girl on the other side of the phone seemed to be relieved. "That's fine. Seeing that you look quite honest, I agree. It's just the end of the month, and I can pay the rent soon, hee. Ouyang was surprised that he agreed so straightforwardly. He wondered if he had become a lot more handsome. His charm value was simply exploding. The two discussed the details of the rental and signed an electronic contract through the internet. Only then did Ouyang know that the girl's name was Sun Xiaoye, a third-year architecture student at Jiaozhou University. After agreeing to move tomorrow, Ouyang was ready to hang up the phone. At this time, a murmur came from the other side of the phone. "Hee, I finally have money to pay the rent." This made the narcissistic Ouyang suffer a big blow. The next morning, Ouyang told Binger that he was moving. When Binger heard that she was going to live with a beautiful big sister, and it was near the school, she didn't object. The brother and sister spent the whole morning to pack their luggage, and in the afternoon, they called the moving company and settled it in one trip. When they arrived at the Tianyuan district, Sun Xiaoye was already waiting at the entrance of the district. He didn't expect this girl to be so polite. Binger carried her pink school bag and held the cute tiger toy in her hand as she opened the car door. After getting off the car, the little girl curiously looked at the surrounding environment of the district. She didn't have the slightest bit of fear when she first arrived in a strange environment. With one look, it was obvious that she was a mischievous troublemaker. Seeing Binger's cute look, Sun Xiaoye's young girl heart was instantly ignited. She quickly stepped forward and looked like she wanted to hold Binger in her arms and ravage her. "Wow, such a cute little loli, come, let big sister hug you." Binger giggled as she took a step back and sweetly said, "Beautiful big sister, hello. My name is Ouyang. Big sister, you could be like big brother and call me Binger." Not hugging Binger, Sun Xiaoye wasn't embarrassed. She smiled and said, "Ouyang, such a good name. I'm Sun Xiaoye. You can also call me Xiaoye big sister." "Binger, do you like this place?" "I like it. This place is as beautiful as our house, and there's an even more beautiful big sister." "Binger is very happy. Hee. Binger giggled as she replied, "Ah, such a sweet mouth. Come, big sister will bring you up." Sun Xiaoye seemed to have entered some kind of crazy state. She threw the guy aside and directly held Binger's hand and went upstairs. Binger turned her head and glanced at her big brother. Seeing him nod, she giggled and followed Xiaoye. She was really clever. Seeing the little girl was so charming, Ouyang was a little jealous. He was thinking that if there was a chance next time, he should bring her to the nearby Jiaozhou University. Maybe then his marriage could be settled. "Boss, which floor should we move to?" The movers mercilessly interrupted the guy's fantasy. Oh, movers, move to the 15th floor. Just follow the girl in front. Thank you." Ouyang hurriedly carried his suitcase and chased after Sun Xiaoye. Sun Xiaoye lived in room 153. Walking into the room, the house was very clean. There were 3 bedrooms, 1 master bedroom, and 2 bedrooms. She lived in the 2nd bedroom. Ouyang Shua shamelessly lived in the master bedroom, and Binger lived in the second bedroom across from him. After arranging their respective rooms and packing their luggage, it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. In order to express his gratitude to Sun Xiaoye, and also to celebrate the housewarming, Ouyang Shua prepared a big meal to reward everyone. After buying the ingredients from the market, Chef Ouyang Shua officially took over the kitchen. He made his signature dishes: Yuxiang shredded pork, sweet and sour spare ribs, boiled beef, and sliced beef in chili sauce, and 7 or 8 other dishes. Binger, the little greedy cat, slipped into the kitchen and didn't come out. Her little hands grabbed the spare ribs and sent them into her mouth. She even said that she wanted to help her brother taste the food so that he wouldn't lose face in front of Sister Xiaoye. After a sumptuous dinner, the 3 of them sat in the living room and chatted. It could also be considered as getting to know each other officially. Binger lay on the sofa and touched her bulging belly. Her face was full of satisfaction. She was so cute. Xiaoye, why did you rent such a big house by yourself? After getting to know each other, Ouyang Shua didn't have any scruples and directly asked the question in his heart. If he said that this girl was a nouveau riche, then she muttered that she couldn't pay the rent. If he said that she wasn't, then she rented a house with 3 bedrooms and a living room by herself. Was there something wrong with her brain? Sigh, brother Ouyang, don't mention it. It's all my best friend's fault for choosing a lover over friend. Originally, the 3 of us lived together, and we signed a 2-year lease, which just happened to end after we graduated from university. Who would have thought that after they got a boyfriend, they all moved to their boyfriend's place, leaving me all alone? In order to pay the rent, I had to sublet 2 rooms. If it wasn't for you guys coming to rent together in time, I could only live on instant noodles every day. Sob sob, Sun Xiaoye said bitterly. It seems that this girl has a deep grudge against her 2 ex-roommates. Once she heard me ask about this, she couldn't stop complaining. Ouyang Shua tactfully didn't continue on this topic. Instead, he changed the topic to talk about school. He also graduated from Jiaozhou University and could be said to be Sun Xiaoye's senior. The 2 of them had a lot of topics to talk about. Around 10 o'clock, everyone went back to their respective rooms to rest. They finally settled down. From tomorrow onwards, he had to prepare for the game. After all, that was the foundation of his rise. With great expectations for the future, Ouyang Shua spent the second night after his rebirth. P.S. Children who are chasing updates, do you still have free likes and cheating coins? The countdown for the 515 red envelope ranking is starting. I'm here to ask for more votes and likes. It's my last push. Chapter 3. Latest news. Tomorrow is 515, Qidian's anniversary celebration, the day with the most benefits. Other than the gift bags and school bags, he definitely had to watch the 515 red envelope flip. There was no reason not to snatch the red envelopes. After waking up in the morning, Ouyang Shua used his optical computer to log into the Earth on 1E official website. He first browsed the forum. There weren't many posts, most of which were complaining about the high price of the game capsule. However, there was a post by an ID called Siege Lion titled The Pros and Cons of Personal Adventure Mode and Territory Construction Mode that caught his attention. Based on the analysis of the limited game information and the experience of previous game modes, Siege Lion believed that the territory construction mode required the player to have a certain level of territory management ability and required continuous investment. It was not recommended for ordinary players. Otherwise, if the territory was conquered, it would be easy to make a profit. Seeing such an accurate prediction, Ouyang Shua suspected that this guy might be a beta tester. After memorizing the ID, he didn't continue browsing. Instead, he went to the shop and chose to purchase the game capsule online. There are different models of the game capsule according to the player's height and body shape. He had to choose one himself. After completing the online payment, the shop notified him that the game capsule would be delivered to his door that afternoon. As for the plot in YY novels where the protagonist waited in line under the sun to buy game equipment, it naturally wouldn't happen in reality. Not to mention now, just 100 years ago, all goods could be purchased online on Earth. At 3 in the afternoon, the game capsule was delivered punctually. The entire capsule was silver gray in color and had an exquisite design, giving off a sci-fi vibe. The staff installed the game capsule in the bedroom according to Ouyang Shua's request and left. Sun Xiaoya wasn't surprised that Ouyang Shua ordered the game capsule. After all, in modern society, there were countless virtual games. Playing games was too normal. The next day was New Year's Day. During the day, Ouyang Shua focused on playing with Binger. This time, Xiaoya also joined in. Under her brother's indulgence and sister Xiaoya's company, the little girl was playing like crazy. Usually, Ouyang Shua was very strict with her studies. After all, no matter what era, knowledge would never fall behind. The reason why Ouyang Shua spoiled the little girl so much was because after the game started, he might not have much time to spend with her in the early stages to lay the foundation of the game. So, before the game started, he took advantage of the holiday to spend time with her. At 8 p.m. on January 1st, 2190, Earth on One was officially launched under the anticipation of thousands of players. Ouyang Shua opened the gaming cabin. The cabin was filled with jelly-like jelly, and there was a human shape in the middle. He laid down in the gaming cabin, put down the fixed bracket, and the gaming cabin slowly closed. Beep, connect to personal optical computer. The elegant voice of the machine sounded. Connect. Beep, personal optical computer connected, personal information collected. Do you want to bind your identity? Bind. Ouyang Shua felt a miniature probe prick his body. Beep, DNA sample collection complete, identity binding successful. Do you want to open the nutrient fluid pipeline? After activation, it will allow players to stay online for long periods of time. Activate. In an instant, a nutrient fluid delivery tube was inserted into his body from his left arm. The AI would monitor the player's body data 24 hours a day. Once hunger was detected, it would intelligently transfer sufficient nutrients to the player. The channel for the nutrient solution has been opened. The cabin is in order. Do you want to log in? 6. Instantly, Ouyang Shua seemed as if he'd traveled through space, and his consciousness left his body and was involuntarily cast towards the multicolored spatial vortex. When he opened his eyes again, Ouyang Shua appeared in a large hall. The hall didn't have a roof or walls, and it was surrounded by a faint mist. It was like a fairyland. Standing in front of Ouyang Shua was a very beautiful fairy. Her facial features were exquisite, and she had a curvaceous body that matched the golden ratio. Her dress fluttered in the wind, and her temperament was unpretentious. She was simply the embodiment of all the beautiful goddesses that humans had imagined. Legend has it that 80 male players fell under this fairy's skirt, unable to extricate themselves from their infatuation. Even Ouyang Shua, who was reincarnated, was infatuated for more than 10 seconds before waking up. He knew that the fairy in front of him was actually the network avatar of Skynet's Gaia. He could only look at her from afar, not play with her. Welcome to Earth on One. Please name your game character. The name can only be composed of Chinese characters. No symbols or other strange characters are allowed, and no insulting words are allowed. The beauty's red lips opened slightly, and her voice was sweet and charming. It was simply captivating. How say I have no clothes? Ouyang Shua didn't use the ID from his previous life, but chose a new name. In this life, he was destined to spend his days on the battlefield. Choosing such a name was quite artistic. System notification. Naming rules are met. No duplicate names. Naming successful. Please choose the game mode, individual adventure mode, or territory construction mode. You can only choose one. I choose territory construction mode. In his previous life, Ouyang Shua chose the individual adventure mode, so it was naturally different in this life. A year later, from the Federation's gaming convention, it wasn't hard to see that the essence of the game lay in territory construction mode. The representatives of the major powers all chose the territory construction mode. Special reminder: Overlord-class players are not allowed to leave the territory unless they are involved in a territory war. To compensate, players can choose an individual adventure job as a part-time job. The so-called Overlord-class players are not allowed to leave the territory, referred to the main plane or the main map. The battle map was not restricted. Individual adventure jobs were divided into two categories: combat jobs, and lifestyle jobs. Similarly, players could only choose one of the two. In the China server, the combat jobs were divided into 6 jobs: tactician, general, knight, Taoist, healer, and bailiff. Each of the combat jobs were not further divided. Players could freely choose their skills and weapons. For example, a knight could use 9 short weapons: swords, whips, maces, axes, sticks, and pestles, and 9 long weapons: swords, spears, rods, tridents, hooks, and halberds. But if a knight used a sword but didn't learn any sword skills, then it was just a facade. The lifestyle jobs included all kinds of professions. The main ones were blacksmiths, tailors, doctors, architects, keepers, fishermen, farmers, veterinarians, brewers, chefs, carpenters, masons, shipbuilders, and so on. The lifestyle jobs didn't have character levels, only skill levels. After dying, they wouldn't lose experience. This was also a form of protection for the lifestyle players who didn't have any combat power. Choose General. This was Ouyang Shua's main job in his previous life, so it was a walk in the park. System notification, job confirmed, starting to generate character stats. Please check. Ouyang Shua opened the status panel and looked at his character stats. Name, don't say I don't have clothes. Title, none. Territory, none. Achievement, 0 out of 100. Title, none. Identity, commoner. Profession, general. Part-time, level 1, 0 out of 100. Reputation, unknown, 0 out of 100. Talent, unlocked. Innate attributes, initial values are randomly generated. Highest single attribute is 20 points. Lowest is 5 points. Friendly upgrade. Innate attributes cannot be increased with level up points. They can only be increased by taking special pills or practicing martial arts. Root bone, 18 points. Affects the character's survivability and adaptability to the environment. Affects the capacity of inner chi storage. Comprehension, 20 points. Affects the speed and depth of learning martial arts. Fortune, 5 points. Affects the probability of sudden incidents and the probability of unexpected gains and losses. Charm, 8 points. Affects the degree of first impressions in interpersonal relationships and the degree of difficulty in solving unexpected incidents. Acquired attributes. Initial values are 5 points. Every level increases by 2 omni points. Every 5 levels automatically increases all attributes by 1 point. The maximum value of a single attribute cannot exceed 100 points. Commander, 5 points. Directly affects the combat power of the battlefield. Affects the maximum number of soldiers. Affects the effectiveness of recruiting soldiers. Affects the smoothness of military orders. Strength, 5 points. Directly affects the power of special attacks. Affects the probability of killing and counterattacking. Affects the increase in reputation. Intelligence, 5 points. Directly affects the durability of buffs. Affects the vision of troops on the battlefield. Affects the activation of secret skills and weapon creation time. Politics, 5 points. Directly affects the execution of territory allocation markets and farms. Affects the success rate of diplomatic negotiations. Remaining unassigned attribute points. 2 points. Martial arts, none. Skills, beginner gathering technique, beginner diplomacy, beginner weapon mastery, equipment, none. Ouyang Shua's innate attributes were heavily biased. His root bone and comprehension were almost maxed out. His fortune and charm had just barely reached the passing line. A high root bone and comprehension were helpful in practicing martial arts. His low fortune and charm meant that he was not liked in the game. It was difficult for him to have a fortuitous encounter. In the skill bar, beginner gathering technique was a common skill for all players. Beginner diplomacy was a common skill for Lord class players. Beginner weapon mastery was a common skill for general professions. There were no so-called skill points for leveling up skills. They could only be leveled up through repeated use. Only after reaching the required proficiency could they be leveled up to the next level. Ouyang Shua chose to allocate 1 commander point and 1 politics point to his acquired zodiac attribute. As a Lord class player, commander and politics were the most important. System notice. Please choose your spawn location. You can choose randomly or specify an approximate location. There's a chance of triggering the miracle system, but there is also a high risk. Please choose carefully. Choosing a spawn location was a hidden trap. In the early stages of the game, many players' eyes lit up when they saw the miracle system. They fantasized about being born in a cave, obtaining a godly skill, and killing everything in their path. However, it was more likely that they would appear in a tiger's den and die a glorious death. Only less than 1,000 players were possessed by the goddess of luck and triggered the miracle system. Moreover, most of the fortuitous encounters were average. Choosing an approximate location was actually a hidden reward for players. Lord-class players could choose an approximate location based on their development plans. Individual adventure-type players could choose an approximate location near a system main city. This way, they wouldn't have to travel around in the wilderness. Choose an approximate location. The beautiful fairy waved her hand, and a miniature 3D map of the China region appeared in front of Ouyang Shua. The whole thing was no different from reality, but it was 10 times larger. The China region didn't have a detailed administrative division, nor did it refer to the administrative divisions of a particular dynasty. Instead, it combined the 5,000 years of Chinese history and chose 9 ancient cities as the system's royal cities. The 9 ancient cities were Capital, Xianyang, Chengdu, Dali, Luoyang, Chang'an, Xiangyang, Jianya, and Xuanzhou. The areas outside the 9 royal cities were all wilderness. There were wild beasts, roving bandits, and refugees everywhere, waiting for adventure-type players to explore. Similarly, the Lord-class players' territory would also be built in the wilderness. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they had to cut through thorns and thorns. Ouyang Shua chose the location of his territory to be near the border between southern Guangxi and Vietnam. As for the specific location, he would have to explore it himself after entering the game. System notice: spawn location selection complete. Do you wish to activate the village creation quest? Special notice: the village creation quest is a quest exclusive to Lord-class players. If the quest fails, the player will lose the right to create the village and can only switch to individual adventuring mode. This village creation quest is not mandatory, so the player can give up and choose to search for the village creation order in the game. Activate. The village creation order was the first hurdle that Lord-class players would face. It was split into bronze, black iron, silver, and gold grades. 80% of the village creation orders were bronze grade. Close to 20% were iron grade, silver grade, and gold grade. There was only one gold grade village creation order in the entire China region. Ouyang Shua knew that many of the representatives of the China region's major powers had custom-made gaming capsules. The only advantage of custom-made versions was that they didn't have to complete the village creation quest and could directly obtain a silver grade village creation order. This was also the result of the Federation and the various powers coming to a compromise. In order to balance this privilege, Skynet's host, Gaia, hid the only gold-grade village creation order in the Lord-class players' village creation quest, waiting for the players to activate it. P.S. Qi Jian is raining red packets. Starting at noon, there would be a round of snatching every hour. A large wave of 515 red packets would depend on luck. Go and snatch them. Use the Qi Jian coins you get to subscribe to my chapters. Chapter 4. Latest broadcast. Tomorrow is 515, Qi Jian's anniversary celebration, the day with the most benefits. Apart from the gift bag and the school bag, this time's 515 red envelope frenzy must be watched. There was no reason not to snatch the red envelopes. Set the alarm clock with a swoosh, a white light flashed, and Ouyang Shua was directly transported to an unfamiliar place. He opened his eyes and found himself lying on an antique Nama bed. Before he could take a closer look at his surroundings, he heard a joyful cry. "Sir, you've finally woken up. How fortunate! The Black Flag Army will be at the city gates tomorrow morning. At this critical moment, you can't have any mishaps." Looking towards the source of the voice, the speaker was an old man dressed like an advisor. He was dressed rather well and had a shrewd look on his face. He held a folding fan in his hand. As he spoke, The two small tufts of his mustache trembled. Ouyang Shuo looked at his surroundings in a daze. Only then did he wake up from his daze. This village-building mission was actually a scenario mission. The so-called scenario mission was an original mission system created by Earth on 1E. After the player received the mission, they would be transported to an individual mission space and automatically play a role in the mission space. Until the mission ended, they would be transported back to the main plane. The flow of time in the mission space was much faster than in the main plane. It was very likely that 2 days in the mission space would only pass 2 hours in the main plane. Scenario missions were as rare as hidden missions, and the rewards after completing the mission were also very generous. After Ouyang Shuo woke up, a system notification rang in his ears. System notification. Congratulations to player not wearing for unlocking the S-rank village building mission, non-mandatory scenario mission. Mission background. XXX calendar year 15, 7th of October, Black Flag Army Commander Li Linfei led 8,000 elite troops to attack Sisui City. Sisui City is in a state of emergency. Mission requirements. The player assumes the role of Sisui City's mayor, who has just recovered from a serious illness, and organizes Sisui City's army and civilians to repel the invading enemy. Mission reward. Village building order, summoning talisman, and resource bag. After looking at the mission notification, Ouyang Shuo already had an idea. The enemy was invading, and at this critical moment, the mayor was sick and unable to govern. The consecutive attacks made the people in the city anxious. Therefore, the most important thing was to stabilize the people. Ouyang Shuo hurriedly got up and ordered the advisor who had just spoken to announce the news of his awakening to all the people in the city. Then, he summoned the main officials to the meeting hall to wait. With the help of the maids, he put on his official robe and walked unhurriedly to the front hall. Along the way, Ouyang Shuo slowly recalled the village building quest process and strategy that the players from his previous life had posted on the forum. Seawater City was just a small city, with less than 3,000 city guards. Moreover, they lacked training and, basically, they had never been on the battlefield. If they wanted to defend against the invading elite Black Flag Army, they could only rely on the sturdy city walls to carry out a passive defense. In order to repel the Black Flag Army, the players all displayed their abilities and thought of many strategies. Fire attacks, poison, human wave tactics, rolling stones tactics, and so on were all used. Most of these tactics had little effect. Take the human wave tactic as an example. As long as the casualties of the army exceeded 20%, the morale of the army would drop significantly. It was impossible to turn all the soldiers into steel warriors who were not afraid of death. Out of all the guides, the one that Ouyang Shuo valued the most was the one that allowed players to obtain a gold village creation order. That player was called Dragon-Seeking Acupuncture Point, and he was an extremely famous quest maniac in the professional gaming circle. He had only entered the game a week after the server opened. In a week, the players had used all kinds of tactics, but none of them had met the hidden conditions for the Gold Village creation order. Dragon-Seeking Acupuncture Point was able to complete the quest in one go. It had to be said that his strength was truly extraordinary. Ouyang Shuo remembered that by relying on that Gold Village creation order, he had grown to become one of the top feudal lords in the China region. However, in this life, this glory had been shamelessly stolen by Ouyang Shuo. Thinking of this, Ouyang Shuo felt that he had let him down. If there was a chance in the future, he would have to properly repay him. According to Dragon-Seeking Acupuncture Point, after he received the quest, he did not follow the conventional train of thought and hurriedly organized the city guards and the citizens to go up the city walls to resist the enemy. Instead, he continuously conversed with the NPCs in the city in an attempt to find hidden clues, hoping to use different methods to complete the quest. Hard work paid off. Finally, he learned from a water conservancy official that there was a reservoir 1,000 meters south of Sisui City. If he could arrange for people to suddenly dig open the reservoir when the Black Flag Army had just set up camp, then the raging flood would be enough to completely wipe out the Black Flag Army. Only, this method went against the will of heaven. Under the devastation of the flood, many villages and farmlands outside the city would suffer. If the players didn't take the initiative to ask, the NPCs wouldn't tell you about this quest clue. Perhaps this was the brilliance of dragon-seeking acupuncture point, this quest maniac. While the other players' thoughts were still stuck in the conventional defensive and counterattack tactics, his thoughts had already jumped out of this city, and he was digging out the mysteries of victory from outside the city. Ouyang Shua arrived at the meeting hall. Sisui City's main officials and city guards were already all present. Each and every one of them was originally apprehensive, but when they saw the city lord's calm appearance, they felt much more at ease. After sitting down in the main seat, Ouyang Shua swept his eyes over everyone one by one and calmly said, "Everyone, there is no need to panic. I already have a good plan to defeat the enemy. What everyone needs to do is to properly pacify the commoners in the city. Tonight, the city will implement a curfew to prevent local ruffians from taking advantage of the chaos to rob. Once discovered, severe punishment will not be given. In addition, the city guards must properly arrange the city wall's defenses, properly carry out patrol work, spread out the scouting team. We must grasp the enemy's whereabouts at all times. Do not slack off." The group of officials were completely confused by Ouyang Shua, but due to the city lord's dignity, none of them were insensible enough to jump out and cause trouble, all of them nodding in agreement. "All right, Sir Zhu, stay behind. I have some instructions. The rest of you can disperse." Sir Zhu was the advisor from just now, the city lord's trusted aide. Knowing what to do, Ouyang Shua didn't have the patience to deal with these NPCs, directly sending them away. As for the matter of digging the dam and releasing the water, it was better to have a trusted aide do it alone. It wasn't appropriate to announce it in front of everyone. Otherwise, if he didn't handle things discreetly and the Black Flag Army found out, then it would truly be like drawing water with a wicker basket. After the others dispersed, Ouyang Shua instructed advisor Sir Zhu to arrange for people to rush to the reservoir dam in advance tonight. After the Black Flag Army set up camp tomorrow morning, the city gate will use the signal of fire to dig, open the dam, and flood the Black Flag Army. When advisor Sir Zhu finished listening to the city lord's so-called good plan to defeat the enemy, he was inwardly fearful. Even though the old sir felt that this method was a bit like harming the enemy by 800 and harming oneself by 1,000, at least they could defeat the enemy. Otherwise, if the Black Flag Army broke through the city, who knew what kind of punishment the commoners in the city would suffer? As the saying goes, a fellow Taoist's death is better than mine, so he didn't raise any objections. Early the next morning, the Black Flag Army arrived as scheduled, starting to set up camp 5 li outside the city. When the Black Flag Army was about to finish assembling and the rear army caught up, Ouyang Shua decisively gave the order to light the signal of fire. When the signal of fire rose, the small team guarding the dam immediately cut open a large hole in the dam. In order to prevent any accidents, the small team cut open a large half of the hole last night. As a result, in less than 10 minutes, the surging flood poured out of the reservoir, surging towards the Black Flag Army camp like a flood dragon. At this time, the Black Flag Army was still preparing to bury the pot and cook, so how could they react in time, and were directly swept away. Under the devastation of the flood, both men and animals died. Ouyang Shua led the city officials and stood on top of the city wall. When he saw the scene in front of him that was like hell on earth, his expression became grave. Even though they were all NPCs and only a set of data, if something was to be blamed, it was because the game was too realistic. It was impossible for people not to be moved. At this time, a sweet-sounding system notification sound rang out. System notification. Congratulations to player who has no clothes for completing the S-rank village creation mission. During the course of the mission, not a single soldier died in Sisui City. The invading Black Flag Army was completely wiped out, satisfying the hidden reward requirements. The special reward is 1 gold grade village creation order, 1 emperor grade summoning talisman, and 1 intermediate resource bag. Fortunately, this was the scenario mission space. Players couldn't receive system announcements from the outside, nor would they release system announcements to the outside world. Otherwise, it would inevitably cause a huge uproar. System notification. Congratulations to player who has no clothes for completing the S-rank village creation mission. Mission completion rate, 100. You will receive an additional 1,000 EXP, 500 reputation, and 100 gold coins. System notification. Player who has no clothes has risen to level 6. Description. Experience calculation formula EXP equals 30, NNN plus 5N, minus 80, where N is the current level. In the village creation mission, the more soldiers and commoners that died, the lower the mission completion rate. The hidden condition of the gold grade village creation order was that not a single soldier died. This was an almost impossible mission in ancient wars, and could only be completed with this kind of unconventional method. The village creation order, summoning talisman, and resource bag were collectively known as the village creation set. Every player that completed the village creation mission would obtain them. With a 100% mission completion rate, apart from the reward of the gold grade village creation order, the summoning talisman and resource bag also increased by 1 level. Ouyang Shua impatiently looked at the attributes of the 3 items. This was a crucial step that would determine his future success or failure. Name: Village Creation Order, Gold Grade. Characteristics: Refugee Attraction Rate increased by 50, Special Talent Attraction Rate increased by 20, Crop Production increased by 50, Production Skill Proficiency increased by 20, Army Soldier Level increased by 20, Exclusive Success Rate of Territory Talent Breaking Through Bottlenecks increased by 10, Evaluation. This is a godly item that can increase the territory's overall strength. How to make the best use of it is up to the player to figure it out. Unique item. Cannot be dropped, cannot be traded. Compared to other grades of village creation orders, the gold grade village creation order's attributes were greatly increased. As such, it could increase the territory's attributes in all aspects. Summoning Talisman. Emperor grade randomly summons an Emperor grade historical figure to serve you. Historical figures start from King grade and are split into King grade, Emperor grade, God grade, and Saint grade. It was said that there was also the highest grade, which was Confucius, who was known as the Supreme Sage. He was the only existence to surpass Saint grade. In the 10 years of playing the game in his previous life, not a single lord had been able to subdue Confucius. Even inviting Confucius to settle down was not enough. This old man loved to travel around the world and would never stay in one place for too long. Resource bag. Intermediate grain, 500 units, wood 500 units, stone 500 units, iron 500 units. The 4 types of resources in the resource bag were called basic resources by players. Basically, the territory's construction couldn't be done without these 4 types of resources. Moreover, the resource bag was a single-use item and could only be taken out, not stored. Once all the resources in the resource bag were taken out, the resource bag would automatically disappear. The resources in the intermediate resource bag were 5 times that of the basic resource bag, which made Ouyang Shua even more confident in carrying out his plans. Of course, the most important thing was the 100 gold coins reward. In the early stages of the game, where copper coins were still the main currency, 100 gold coins was a huge sum of money. System notification. Quest complete. Would you like to immediately teleport back to the main plane? Teleport. With a whoosh, a white light flashed, and Ouyang Shua disappeared from the quest space. PS 515 Chidian is raining red packets. From noon onwards, there would be a round of snatching every hour. A large wave of 515 red packets would depend on luck. Go and snatch, and use the Chidian coins to subscribe to my chapters. Chapter 5. With a swoosh, a white light flashed, and Ouyang Shua finally appeared in the wilderness of the main plane. Before he could take a good look at his surroundings, a series of system announcements exploded in his ears. System announcement. Congratulations to player D Chun for successfully building the first level 1 village in the China server, Handan Village. Special reward. 1,100 merit points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Battlewolf for successfully building the second level 1 village in the China server, Red Blood Village. Special reward, 1,000 merit points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Feng Qingyang for successfully building the third level 1 village in the China server, Swordsman Village. Special reward, 900 merit points. System announcement. Congratulations to players Seeking Phoenix for successfully building the 4th level 1 village in the China server, Luofeng Village. Special reward, 800 merit points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Chun Xinjun for successfully building the 5th level 1 village in the China server, Danyang Village. Special reward, 700 merit points. System announcement. Congratulations to player Military Killer for successfully building the 6th level 1 village in the China server, Azura Village. Special reward, 600 merit points. Unsurprisingly, when Ouyang Shuo was doing the village building mission, there were already 6 lords in the China server who had successfully built level 1 villages. These 6 people were all overlords in his previous life. They were the 6 most powerful lords in the China server and were known as the 6 Lords of Handan. They were the representatives of the major forces in the China server and used the Federation's custom-made gaming pods. They did not have to do any missions and could directly obtain a silver grade village building order. The continuous system announcements caused a huge uproar. If it was just 1 or 2 lucky people, it would be understandable for them to build a village as soon as the server started. However, it was obviously abnormal for 6 people to build a village at the same time. The players were protesting, but the officials remained silent and did not say anything. Ouyang Shuo, who knew the truth, naturally would not join in the commotion. He started to look at his surroundings. Looking up, he could see weeds growing everywhere, and he could not see the end of it. Withered weeds, dry monsoon winds, gloomy skies, and a somber atmosphere. The wilderness had never been some utopia. Death was the eternal theme here. The mountains in the distance towered into the clouds, and the undulating mountain range looked like a sleeping dragon. At the foot of the mountain, the trees were scattered all over the place, their trunks bare and lifeless. System notification. Congratulations to player Not Wearing for discovering a new map. Lianzhou Basin. Exploration experience plus 100. The main characteristic of a basin was that it was high on all sides and low in the middle. It got its name because of its basin's shape. As one of the 5 basic terrains in the world, it was widely distributed in the real world. After the game map was expanded 10 times, the hills were raised 10 times, and the rivers were widened 10 times. The small basins that were originally spread all over the country would become large basins like the Sichuan Basin in reality. This kind of terrain was easy to defend and difficult to attack. The edge of the basin was rich in mineral resources, so it was very popular with Lord-class players. Most of the major forces in the game were built on such terrain. The Lianzhou Basin covered an area of nearly 240,000 square kilometers, which was equivalent to the size of the entire Guangxi province in reality. To the west of the basin was the border between China and Vietnam. It was modified by the system into a huge rocky mountain range, which was impossible to cross. To the north, there was a pass called the Southern Guard Pass. It was currently occupied by a group of powerful bandits. Further north of the Southern Guard Pass was the hinterland of Guangxi. To the east was the boundary between Guangxi and Lingnan. It was filled with towering mountains and dense forests. Just like the north, there was also an exit in the south. Further south was the Bibu Bay of the South Sea. The monsoon wind from the sea passed through the canyon and blew into the Lianzhou Basin, bringing with it a vibrant vitality. In his previous life, the Lianzhou Basin was covered with nearly 100 territories of players. After mergers and reorganizations in the later stages, 3 large territories were born. These 3 lords fought each other, but none could completely eliminate the other. They always maintained a tripartite balance. Until Ouyang Shuo's rebirth, in the 5th year of the game, the Lianzhou Basin did not have an overlord who unified the Lianzhou Basin. In this life, Ouyang Shua's midterm goal was to dominate the Lianzhou Basin and establish the foundation for his hegemony. When Ouyang Shua chose his spawn location, he purposely chose the side near the sea. As long as he kept walking south, he would be able to find the southern exit of the Lianzhou Basin. Before leaving, he first checked the items on his body. Every new player that was born was automatically given a set of coarse hemp clothes and a pair of cloth shoes. The storage bag that was given by the system was attached to his waist. It had an initial capacity of 1 cubic meter and could be upgraded. The items in the storage bag did not take up any weight. Other than the village creation order, summoning amulet, and the 100 gold coins, there was not even a single weapon in the storage bag. The resource pouch was a special storage equipment. It could not be put into the storage bag, so it was also attached to his waist. Ouyang Shua prepared to use the summoning amulet to find a helper first. Otherwise, before he could find a suitable location to build the village, he would be killed by roving bandits on the road. That would be too unjust. After tearing the summoning amulet, a white light flashed, and a valiant middle-aged general riding on a yellow buckskin horse appeared. System notification. Congratulations to player who says that has nothing successfully subdued the historical character Long Live Sure. Special reward, 100 points of reputation. When the middle-aged general saw Ouyang Shua, he immediately dismounted and knelt on one knee. He said solemnly, "General Long Live Sure pays respect to the Lord." Ouyang Shua hurriedly walked forward and helped him up with both hands. He patted the general's shoulder with his right hand and said with a smile, "General Sure, please get up." Having the general's help is like adding wings to a tiger. System notification. Congratulations to player who says that has nothing. Because of your courtesy, the historical character Long Live Sure's loyalty has increased by 5 points. While greeting the general, Ouyang Shua checked Sure's attributes. Name, Long Live Sure, Emperor level. Title, one of the 10 great historical generals. Dynasty, Sui Dynasty. Identity, none. Occupation, special class general. Loyalty, 85 points. Commander, 80 points. Force, 95 points. Intelligence, 60 points. Politics, 30 points. Specialties, leading the way. Increases troop morale by 40 points. Fighting in the south and north. Increases troop movement by 30 points. Insight into the finest details. Increases troop attack power by 20 points. Technique, Blazing Sun Spear Technique, 24 moves. Equipment, Yellow Buckskin Horse, Tiger Fish Scale Armor, Wrought Iron Spear, Fine Steel Sword, White Birch Bow. Evaluation. The founding general of the Sui Dynasty, brave and brave, good at riding and archery. He has an upright temperament and is not good at politics. He is good at comforting the soldiers, but not good at managing the army. With a fierce general like Sure as his bodyguard, Ouyang Shua no longer had to worry about being bullied by the roving bandits. The two of them and one horse hurriedly headed south. In less than an hour, they had reached the southernmost part of the basin. Between the towering mountains, there was a 50-meter wide canyon that stretched straight into the distance. Below the canyon was a river of the same width. The river forked 500 meters in front of the canyon, dividing into 2 tributaries, the east and the west. To be more precise, the 2 tributaries converged here. The one on the west was called the Friendship River, and the one on the east was called the Qiushui River. The Friendship River was slightly wider, being 35 meters wide, while the Qiushui River was slightly narrower, being 30 meters wide. If there were no surprises, the source of the 2 rivers should be lakes formed by rainwater gathering in the mountains on the east and west side. After careful consideration, Ouyang Shua planned to build a village on the west side of the canyon, at the foot of the mountain on the side of the national border. The village was backed by the Rocky Mountain range that separated the national border. To the west was a forest, to the north was the flowing Friendship River, and to the east was the canyon. This way, it would be easy to defend the territory and also take care of collecting resources. At the same time, it would guard the mouth of the canyon, which was a strategic location. The problem now was how the 2 of them were going to cross the 35-meter wide Friendship River and build a village on the other side of the river. Oh, there was also a warhorse. He had no choice but to follow the spirit of doing it himself and getting enough food and clothing. Ouyang Shuo took out 10 units of wood from his resource bag. With Shi Wansue's help, he tied it up with rattan and made a simple raft. System notice: congratulations to player not wearing anything for successfully making a raft and mastering beginner shipbuilding. Raft, simple water transportation tool. Evaluation: it's too simple and crude. A gust of wind could flip it over. Please use caution. Earth on 1, it was a game with a high degree of freedom. Even if Ouyang Shuo hadn't mastered beginner shipbuilding, as long as he had the right materials, tools, and knew the principles, he could still make a raft in the game. The same principle applied to gunpowder, glass, wine-making, and other technologies. The two of them rowed the raft across the Friendship River. They placed the raft on the shore and covered it with weeds. They walked south until they reached the foot of the mountain. Choosing the location of the village was very important. This was because once the village creation order was used, it couldn't be moved. Lord-class players had to reserve space for future development. In ancient times, there was a limit to the size of a city. It wasn't always better to be bigger. Generally speaking, a city's limit was around 100 square kilometers. If it was any bigger, with ancient technology, the difficulty of managing the city would increase exponentially. Transportation, drainage, sanitation, and so on would all be a huge challenge. A city of 100 square kilometers was equivalent to a square with a side of 10 kilometers. The city lord's mansion was located in the middle of the city, and it was as far back as possible. According to this plan, Ouyang Shuo chose the location of the village to be 382 kilometers away from the southern mountain range. It was 10 kilometers away from the east side of the canyon, and there was a 5-kilometer buffer zone. He took out the village creation order from his storage bag and inserted it into the soil. He then bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood on the token. Immediately, the village creation order turned into a ball of gentle golden light. The golden light shot into the sky and exploded in the air, turning into a golden halo that spread in all directions. The halo spread all the way to the edge of the territory before disappearing. At the same time, a golden stone tablet slowly rose from the ground where Ouyang Shuo was standing. The stone tablet was 9 feet tall and 3 feet wide. The front of the stone tablet was blank, and the back was engraved with 4 ancient words: "Blessed by the heavens, live forever." Ouyang Shuo pressed his palm on the stone tablet, and the system's notification sounded. System notification: congratulations to player who says that has successfully built a village. Please name your village. This place was backed by mountains and connected directly to the sea. Let's call it Shanghai Village. Shanghai Village. As soon as he finished speaking, the words Shanghai Village appeared on the front of the stone tablet. System notification: congratulations to player who says that has successfully built the 7th level 1 village in the China server, Shanghai Village. Special reward: 500 achievement points. System notification: congratulations to player who says that has successfully built the 7th level 1 village in the China server, Shanghai Village. Special reward: 500 achievement points. System notification: congratulations to player who says that has successfully built the 7th level 1 village in the China server, Shanghai Village. Special reward: 500 achievement points. This time, the system notification did not attract much attention. After all, when Ouyang Shuo was still working on the village creation quest, the China server had already heard the same system notification 6 times in a row. Everyone was already numb to it. Others might not care, but the 6 lords of Handan immediately noticed this lord-level player called who says that has nothing. They knew very well that in the entire China server, there were only 6 special people who could directly obtain a silver-grade village creation order. Now that the 7th person had appeared, he could actually be considered as the first player to build a village in the China server. No amount of attention could be paid to him. Unfortunately, with the conditions in the wilderness, they would not be able to obtain any information about Shanghai Village in a short period of time. The reward for the first person to build a village was 100 achievement points. Every time one's rank dropped, it would decrease by 100 achievement points. After the 10th place, everyone would be rewarded with 100 achievement points. For Lord-class players, achievement points were more important than level and reputation. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was the most important attribute. This was because achievement points were directly linked to one's noble rank. A player's noble rank was bestowed by heaven. As long as their achievement points reached the requirements, they would automatically be promoted. The noble ranks in Earth on 1E were divided into 5 ranks: Baron, Viscount, Earl, Marquis, and Duke. Apart from Duke, each rank was further divided into 3 ranks, for a total of 5 ranks and 13 ranks. A third rank Baron's merit points were 100 points. Every increase in rank would require double the amount of merit points. In total, the first rank Marquis required 24,800 achievement points. The highest rank, Duke, required 100,000 achievement points. Achievement points were very difficult to obtain. They could only be obtained by contributing to the country. Usually, there were only a few limited methods, such as establishing a territory in the wilderness to expand the country's territory, fighting against bandits and roving bandits, protecting the border and pacifying the people, participating in military campaigns, and making contributions. The most important thing was that the noble rank was directly linked to the level of the territory. The territory was also divided into 5 ranks: village, town, county, county city, capital city, and so on. If the Lord's noble rank did not meet the requirements of the next rank, the territory would not be able to be promoted. System notice. Congratulations to player who says that has nothing has built Shanghai Village. In the village building, the Lord's Mansion will automatically give you this item. In addition, 3 basic village buildings will be randomly selected. Player can also choose one of them. System notice. 3 buildings will be randomly selected. They're the fence wall, the basic blacksmith shop, and the basic market. Please choose. I choose the basic market. System update. Basic building selection complete. Starting automatic generation. Whoosh, a white light flashed. A wooden courtyard house appeared where Ouyang Shua was standing. The two of them stood in the living room of the courtyard house. At the same time, a small wooden building appeared in the northwest corner of the courtyard. This should be the basic market that the system gifted. System notice. Congratulations to player who says that has nothing has successfully built a village. Rewarding 10 farmers. Please head to the village entrance to receive them. All rewards have been distributed. Please check on yourself. The golden stone tablet slowly sank into the ground. In the future, the stone tablet would only rise again when the territory was leveled up or when the territory was attacked. System notice. Historical character Long Live Sure has witnessed the birth of the village. Loyalty has increased by 5 points. System notice. Historical character Long Live Sure's loyalty has increased to 90 points. Derived characteristic, loyalty, increases military morale by 10 points. He did not expect there to be such a pleasant surprise. After loyalty had increased to 90 points, Long Live Sure's gaze towards Ouyang Shua became more respectful. Chapter 6. There was no time to check the village's attributes. Ouyang Shua brought Sure Wan Sui out of the Lord's Mansion and prepared to go to the village entrance to receive the 10 farmers. Greater than or equal to at the village entrance. 10 emaciated farmers dressed in rags and with lifeless eyes were gathered together, sizing up the mountain sea village curiously. At the feet of the peasants were some rags. That was all their belongings. Ouyang Shua was in the front, and Sure Wan Sui was behind him. When the group of farmers saw Sure Wan Sui, a trace of fear flashed in their eyes. When he turned his head to look at Ouyang Shua, who was standing in front of Sure Wan Sui, he immediately became respectful, appearing even more reserved. All of them hurriedly bowed to the ground. A middle-aged man, who was the leader, said, "Greetings, sir. I, Zhao Dexian, and my fellow villagers have come to seek shelter in your honorable village. I hope that you will take us in." Ouyang Shua briefly introduced himself. I'm the village chief of Shanghai Village, and this person behind me is General Shi. After the introduction, he continued, I'm very happy that everyone has come to vote. The Mountain Sea Village was in dire need of talents, so there was no reason not to take them in. Let's not talk about anything else, as long as you are willing to work hard. I guarantee that everyone will have clothes to wear, food to eat, houses to live in, and fields to plow. These 4 promises simply reached the bottom of the hearts of the group of farmers. Their eyes gradually lit up. It was a yearning for a better life. All of them whispered and discussed animatedly. Everyone, please be quiet. Ouyang Shuo paused for a moment. After everyone had calmed down, he continued, let's not stand at the village entrance. Everyone, follow me back to the Lord's mansion. We'll settle down for the time being and fill our stomachs. Hearing that they could fill their stomachs, everyone cheered again. How pitiful. They hadn't had a full meal for more than 10 days. Before leaving, Ouyang Shuo called for Shi Wansui and solemnly said, General Shi, I have a request for you. Shi Wansui was startled and said, Your Highness, please instruct me. I will do my best. It's like this. The Shanghai village had just been built, and the walls and fences had not been built yet, so there was no defense at all. For the safety of the territory, I hope that you will patrol the territory. If you encounter wild beasts and bandits, don't be lenient. Eliminate them firmly to prevent future troubles, Ouyang Shuo instructed. This general obeys. After Shi Wansui finished speaking, he rode away on his yellow buckskin horse with his rations. Ouyang Shuo settled the 10 farmers in the east wing of the mansion and gave them rations. Returning to the village head's office alone, he saw 2 items on the desk, a seal and a booklet. The official seal was the Lord's official seal. It was made of brass, and the button of the official seal was a turtle. The booklet was the Lord's handbook, which recorded the basic information of the territory. Territory, Shanghai Village, Level 1 Village. Lord, Who Says Wui, First Class Baron. Title, None Popular Support. 70 Public Security. 65 Territory Population. 12/200 Refugee Spawn Rate. 10 1 plus 50 equals 15 refugees per day. Territory area. 20 square kilometers. Territory special characteristics. Refugee attraction rate increased by 50. Special talent attraction rate increased by 20. Crop yield increased by 50. Production skill proficiency increased by 20. Army soldier level increased by 20. Territory talent breakthrough success rate increased by 10. Territory capital, 100 gold coins. Territory resources, 500 units of grain, 490 units of wood, 500 units of stone, 500 units of iron ore. Territory army. None territory industry, none political index. 5 out of 100 determines administrative efficiency, affects popular support. Economic index. 5 out of 100 determines trade prosperity, affects tax revenue. Cultural index. 0 out of 100 determines education level, affects quality of residence. Military index. 10 out of 100 determines military strength, affects. Stable relationships. Existing buildings. Village Lord's Mansion. Primary market list of basic construction buildings. Frowny face, simple fence. Primary fortification. Has a weak defensive function. Can stop wild beasts. Construction requirement. 100 units of wood. Construction time. 24 hours. Village canteen. A place where residents eat together. Construction requirement. Canteen blueprint. 30 units of wood. 20 units of stone. Construction time. 12 hours. Village toilet. Improves village hygiene. Construction requirement. Toilet blueprint. 10 units of wood. 10 units of stone. Construction time. 6 hours. Wooden residential courtyard. Provides living space for 20 people. Construction requirement. Residential courtyard blueprint. 40 units of wood. 20 units of stone. Construction time. 12 hours. Beginner blacksmith shop. Creates all kinds of farming tools, such as axes, chisels, and other iron tools. Construction requirement. Beginner blacksmith shop blueprint, 20 units of wood, 10 units of stone. Construction time. 12 hours. Beginner miscellaneous goods shop. Sells all kinds of daily necessities. Construction requirement. Salesman miscellaneous goods shop blueprint, 20 units of wood, 10 units of stone. Beginner lumberyard. Increases the rate of wood resource collection, produces an average of 10 units of wood per person per day. Construction requirement, 30 units of wood. Construction time, 6 hours. Beginner quarry. Increases the rate of stone resource collection, produces an average of 5 units of stone per person per day. Construction requirement, 20 units of wood, 10 units of stone. Construction time, 6 hours. Simple farmland. Can grow crops, produces an average of 200 units of grain per moo. Description: grain is harvested twice a year. The first season is sown before the Qingming festival, and the second season is sown at the end of June and the beginning of July. If the best planting time is missed, the yield will be reduced by 10 to 50 units. Beginner barracks can turn farmers into militia. Construction requirement: general barracks blueprint, 100 units of wood, 40 units of stone. Construction time, 24 hours. Based on a population of 200, they would need to build 10 residential courtyards. All the buildings would need a total of 730 units of wood and 300 units of stone. The most scarce thing was still food. Each villager would need to consume 1 unit of food a day, and each militia would need to consume 2 units of food a day. Based on a population of 200, the territory would need to consume at least 210 units a day. The game time and real time were synchronized 1:1, just that the day and night were reversed. The main map of the game used the Gaia calendar. It was the 1st of January in the first year of Gaia, and it was not time for rice to be sown. Therefore, in the first half of this year, Overlord players would not be able to receive a single grain of rice from the farmland. This was the darkest half of the year for Overlord players. For the sake of food, they had to sell their limited wood, ores, and other resources to the system, causing the development of the territory to stagnate. There were countless territories that went bankrupt due to the lack of food. However, the so-called crisis was an opportunity amidst danger. During this process, some overlords would take the opportunity to open up special industries in their territory and escape the predicament of food. Most of these outstanding overlords would later upgrade their territory to the level of a county city, which was admirable. This was the essence of Earth on 1E. It would not allow overlords to easily upgrade their territory. There were all sorts of obstacles and traps that were impossible to guard against. Only those who could overcome the obstacles and escape the traps could stand out and lead the way. As for those who played around, they were destined to be eliminated early. Back to the front. What Ouyang Shual lacked the most were all kinds of construction blueprints, blacksmiths, and peddlers. The most urgent task was to build the fence, the canteen, and the toilet. There was no rush to open up the farmland, since it was not needed now. The lumberyard, residential courtyards, and quarry were the second priority. As for the barracks, the population was too small, so there was no rush to build them. After sorting out the village plan, Ouyang Shual went to the east wing. Zhao Dexian and the rest had already eaten lunch and were sitting together chatting. When they saw the village chief enter, they got up to greet him. Ouyang Shual smiled in response. "How is it? Are you used to living here?" Yes. This place is better than the place we used to live," Zhao Dexian said respectfully. "It's good to get used to it. We were in too much of a hurry just now and didn't have time to get to know each other. Why don't you introduce yourselves? Zhao Dexian, you first." Ouyang Shual pointed at Zhao Dexian. "Sir, our previous village was called Zhao Family Ditch. It was isolated from the rest of the world. Half a month ago, an injured bandit accidentally broke into the village. At first, we didn't know his true identity. We kindly bandaged his wounds and even asked him to stay in the village to recuperate. After his wounds were healed, the man immediately left. What we didn't expect was that the next day, he brought his accomplices and ransacked our village. There were more than 300 people in the village, but only 10 of us escaped. In these 10 days, we were tortured in the wilderness. Fortunately, Sir took us in and gave us a place to stay." Speaking of his sorrow, this unyielding man couldn't help but tear up. "All right, the dead are gone. We need to learn to look forward. Zhao Dexian, what did you do before?" Ouyang Shual didn't know how to comfort this group of sad people, so he changed the topic. In reply to Sir, "When I was in Zhao Family Ditch, Thanks to everyone's recommendation, I became the village chief. This was a pleasant surprise. He didn't expect there to be such a talented administrator. He checked Zhao Daxian's attributes. Name, Zhao Daxian, bronze, identity, Shanghai village villager, occupation, civil official loyalty, 75 commander, 15 force, 20 intelligence, 20 politics, 30 evaluation. Former village chief of Zhao family ditch, well-mannered, good at managing the village, good at agricultural and water conservancy management. After a round of introductions, among the remaining 9 people, 2 were fruit farmers called Zhao Yud and Zhao Yukai. They were 2 brothers. One was a carpenter in the village called Zhao Yufang. The other was a mason called Zhao Duong. The remaining 5 were pure farmers. Half of the people in the group were special talents. It wasn't that Ouyang Shua had hit the jackpot, but it was a hidden reward from the system. The system couldn't really arrange 10 pure farmers. If that was the case, they wouldn't even be able to build a house. After getting to know each other, Ouyang Shua immediately appointed Zhao Daxian as the captain of the construction team. He arranged for him to lead 5 people to build a wooden fence. At the same time, he arranged for Zhao Yufang to take the remaining 3 people to build a primary lumber yard and start collecting wood as soon as possible. This was because Ouyang Shua wanted to build the fence according to the standards of a level 3 village in one go, which required 600 units of wood. There was a shortfall of 170 units of wood to begin with. If they didn't hurry to mine, they wouldn't be able to keep up with the pace of construction. According to the game's design, after the territory leveled up, other than the Lord's residence, the other buildings would remain the same and wouldn't be upgraded. In order to make it easier for the Lord to replan the territory, the system designed a recycling function. The Lord could recycle the buildings that were about to be adjusted and relocate them to the appropriate location. However, recycling wasn't free. Every time a building's position was adjusted, there was a fee. Therefore, Lord-type players with foresight would usually only adjust their territories once they crossed a new rank. Of course, the other players didn't know what kind of buildings would appear at the next level, so they could only make a rough plan. As for Ouyang Shua, when he was in a level 1 village, he directly built a level 3 village fence. The layout of the buildings in the village would also follow the content of a level 3 village, with enough space reserved. This was also because Ouyang Shua, who had been reborn, could do this kind of foresight to the extreme. Others couldn't be envious of him. Chapter 7. After arranging Zhao Daxian and the others' work, Ouyang Shua did not remain idle. He planned to go to the basic market to see if he could find anything good. The basic market was built in the northwest corner of the village, near the village entrance. The market occupied a large area. Apart from a small wooden building used for trading, there was an empty space to the west of the building that served as an unloading area. Walking into the building, Shifeng found that it was empty. On the left side of the hall was a display screen that resembled a computer screen in real life. On the right side was a teleportation formation that emitted a faint magical glow. It was exceptionally mysterious. The market could be said to be a product of the game's era. The left side was the crystallization of a technological civilization, while the right side was the crystallization of a magical civilization. It was impossible to carry out long-distance trading without these two things. The basic market's trading range was the area around the capital. The teleportation formation could not teleport living beings. All transactions had to be paid a 20% transaction tax. Ouyang Shua walked to the display screen on the left side and found that the trading platform was divided into 4 sections. They were the materials trading platform, the special item trading platform, the limited auction platform, and the negotiation platform. The last 2 platforms were grayed out and had not been activated yet. Opening the material trading platform, there were all kinds of materials such as food, wood, stone, ore, cloth, salt, and so on. The only thing missing were military materials such as weapons, armor, and bows. These were prohibited items and could not be sold. Looking at the prices, 1 unit of rations cost 10 copper coins, 1 unit of wood cost 20 copper coins, and 1 unit of iron or cost 100 copper coins. None of them were cheap. What the territory lacked the most right now was wood. Ouyang Shuo bought 500 units for 1 gold coin. What he was really interested in was the special item trading platform. Opening the platform, the special item trading platform was further divided into 4 categories: construction blueprints, crafting technical manuals, skill books, and other items. Needless to say, the construction blueprints for all the non-hidden buildings required for the territory's construction were available. Moreover, they were a complete set of basic, intermediate, advanced, and special rank. During the territory's construction, apart from the buildings required for upgrading, the Lord was not restricted from constructing additional buildings as long as the requirements were met. For example, as long as one had the construction blueprints for a brothel, one could construct a brothel that belonged to a level 3 county when it was still a level 1 village. As for whether you could make the brothel run normally, that was another matter. Even so, the majority of players still constructed the various basic structures step by step. Very few players would attempt to construct structures of a higher level than them. The reason for this was that high-level construction blueprints were simply too expensive. A brothel blueprint cost 1,000 gold coins. Which village chief would be so rich? Even if they had the money, no one would be stupid enough to spend it. Ouyang Shuo first purchased the necessary dining hall blueprints, toilet blueprints, resident courtyard blueprints, blacksmith shop blueprints, sundry shop blueprints, and military camp blueprints for a level 1 village. This was a waste. Most players would not be willing to purchase blueprints from a market. The more common way to obtain building blueprints was to kill roving bandits or attack bandit strongholds. After these humanoid NPCs died, there was a certain chance that they would drop blueprints. The reason why Ouyang Shuo did this was to fully utilize the value of these 100 gold coins. He wanted to use the money in exchange for faster development in the early stages, so that he could be a step ahead. In addition, he also spent 15 gold coins to buy 3 rather special blueprints. They were the construction blueprints for the ferry, the dock, and the shipyard. These were all buildings related to water, so they could only be built in territories near water sources. Therefore, they were not included in the category of buildings required to level up a territory. They were considered special buildings. These crafting techniques were secret crafting techniques. They were not things that could be mastered by ordinary people. The so-called item manufacturing technology was some special and confidential manufacturing technology in the industry. It was not something that ordinary skilled people could master. For example, a grandmaster winemaker could, in theory, brew all kinds of high-grade wine. However, in reality, he had no way to brew the thick workshop liquor. Why? It was because the recipe was secret. No matter how good one's technique was, it was useless. Ouyang Shuo chose the seawater drying technique manual and the compass carriage crafting technique manual. The former was 20 gold, while the latter was 10 gold. In ancient times, salt was sold by the government. It was different in the game. Apart from firearms, everything else could be traded. It would be a waste for a lord who lived by the sea to not know the seawater drying technique. As for the compass carriage, it would be a key item for a future quest. The rewards for the quest were comparable to a gold village creation token. The third skill book contained all the skills of the profession, as well as some special skills. Skill books could only be used by players. NPCs could only learn skills through a master and a disciple. Ouyang Shuo chose basic horsemanship, basic marksmanship, basic archery, and basic detection. These 4 skill books only cost 1 gold. In the 4th category, there was a wide variety of other items, and all sorts of strange items could appear. It all depends on whether your luck is good or not, and whether your eyesight is accurate. Ouyang Shuo's eyes were sore. He could not find anything that was practical and affordable. Just as he was about to give up, the item list refreshed. A new item came into view. Statue of Mazu, broken, priced at 20 gold. After looking at the item's attributes, Ouyang Shuo bought it without hesitation. Name, Statue of Mazu, broken. Level, silver evaluation. This is a broken statue of Mazu. It has a weak trace of Mazu's divine power. Worshipping it for a long time will help repair the statue. Attribute. See God's blessing resistance to storms increases by 40. In order to worship Mazu, Ouyang Shua had no choice but to buy a village temple blueprint. A village temple was a necessary building for a level 3 village. One blueprint cost 10 gold. After a big purchase, Ouyang Shua was only left with 11 gold. He really spent money like water. After purchasing, Ouyang Shua walked to the teleportation point on the right. The teleportation point flashed with white light. The 10 building blueprints, 2 technical manuals for skill books, and a statue were sent over. As for the 500 units of wood, they appeared in the open space in front of the small building. He put all these things into his storage bag and used the 4 skill books. System notification. Congratulations, player, how you have clothes has mastered basic horsemanship. System notification. Congratulations, player, how you have clothes has mastered basic marksmanship. System notification. Congratulations, player, how you have clothes has mastered basic archery. System notification. Congratulations, player, how you have clothes has mastered basic detection. Walking out of the small building, Zhao Daxian and the others were busy building the fence. Since he had nothing to do, Ouyang Shua decided to help them. The level 3 village was 1 square kilometer in area and 1,000 meters in length and width. The entire fence was 4,000 meters long. It was a huge project. According to Ouyang Shua's plan, the fence would have a main gate in the middle of the north side. At the same time, for convenience, there would be a side gate on the east and west side. The lumberyard, as well as the quarry and mine, will be located on the west side of the territory. Therefore, the west gate would be the main entrance for transporting resources. Similarly, the dock and shipyard would be built on the east side of the territory. The east gate would be used to connect the village to the dock. The east and west gates would form a straight line. Together with the central axis, the village would be divided into 4 areas. The central axis would be the busiest area of the village. At the same time, the territory would be divided into 2 areas. The southern end of the central axis would be the Lord's Mansion. The empty space in front of the Lord's Mansion would be reserved as a plaza. Further north would be the village's business street. All of the village's shops, inns, dojos, and other buildings will be distributed on both sides of the business street. The western area would be the residential area. The southwest area would be the agricultural population, such as farmers, fruit farmers, vegetable farmers, lumberjacks, and so on. The northwest area would be the commercial population, such as miners, blacksmiths, tailors, masons, merchants, and so on. The northern end of the northwest area would be the primary market. The eastern area would be the military, educational, and administrative district. The southeastern area would be the scientific, educational, and administrative district. In the future, private schools, medical centers, ancestral halls, and village temples will be located there. The northeastern area would be the military area. In the future, the weapons workshops, strategic granaries, and the upcoming military camps will be located there. Ouyang Shua spent the entire afternoon building the fence while thinking about the village's overall plan. A quarter of the fence had already been built. After the refugees were released tomorrow, they should be able to finish building the fence in a day. At dusk, Sherwan Sui finally returned from his patrol. Pheasants, rabbits, and other game were hung on one side of the yellow buckskin horse. On the other side, there was a cloth bag with something moving around inside. Ouyang Shua stopped what he was doing and greeted him. "General, you've worked hard. It seems like you've gained a lot." Sherwan Sui hurriedly dismounted and cupped his fists. "I only met a few petty thieves. It's not worth much. However, I found a plaything for you. I hope you like it." "Oh, I wonder what it is." "I'm naturally convinced by the general's foresight." Sherwan Sui laughed and turned around to untie the cloth bag from the horse's back. He untied the cloth bag, and a pure black wolf cub appeared in front of Ouyang Shua. The cub was obviously born not long ago. It had a pair of big, dark green eyes that were half open and looked very cute. "Is this a wolf cub?" Ouyang Shua asked with a little uncertainty. Sherwan Sui seemed a little proud. "Haha. To be precise, it should be a black wolfhound cub. It looks like a wolf, but it's not a real wolf." "Black wolfhound. Not bad, not bad. This little fellow should be a good helper for hunting when it grows up." Zhao Dexian and the others also gathered around and curiously sized up the cub in the cloth bag. Seeing that everyone was so interested in it, Shi Wansui became even more proud of himself. He was an honest man who couldn't hide his thoughts on his face. Ouyang Shaw didn't want to spoil his mood and asked curiously, "I didn't expect the general to have such a harvest on this trip. There must be a story behind it. Why don't you take advantage of the fact that everyone is here to tell us, so that we can see the world?" He asked everyone to sit on the ground and form a circle. Shi Wansui laughed and didn't have stage fright. He sat straight down and began to talk about today's patrol experience. "I followed the Lord's orders and left the village entrance at noon to patrol the territory. The journey was very peaceful. There were only some small animals like pheasants and hares, which I shot down along the way. Occasionally, I met 1 or 2 wandering bandits. They were so poor that they didn't even have mounts, so I killed them with 1 shot. On the way back, I met a pack of wolfhounds hunting wild goats. Without saying a word, a certain someone charged forward and killed most of the wolfhounds. I chased after the wolfhounds all the way and unexpectedly found their kennel. Of course, I picked them up together. I unexpectedly saw this cub in the kennel. I thought that the Lord might have a use for it, so I kept it." Hearing Shi Wansui mention the wild goats, Ouyang Shua silently remembered it and already had a plan. However, it was already late, so he planned to make plans the next day. Not long after, Zhao Yufeng and the other 2 who had gone out also finished building the primary lumber mill and returned together. From tomorrow onwards, the lumber mill would officially start operating. Taking this opportunity, Ouyang Shua suggested that everyone have an extra meal tonight to celebrate the official establishment of Shanghai Village. The only fly in the ointment was that everyone was a group of men and none of them knew how to cook. Fortunately, Shi Wansui had hunted some wild game to liven things up. Otherwise, the extra meal would have ended anticlimactic. Ouyang Shua sincerely hoped that there would be a chef among the refugees that would respawn tomorrow. After arranging for Shi Wansui to stay in the East Wing and instructing him to arrange the night shift, Ouyang Shua returned to his room in the main hall and prepared to rest. He lay on the hard bed and closed his eyes. In his mind, he silently said, "Log out of the game." When he opened his eyes again, he had already logged out of the game. Chapter 8. When he opened the game cabin, it was already 6 in the morning in reality. After a simple wash, Ouyang Shua put on his sportswear and prepared to go downstairs for a jog. He had just moved into the neighborhood and was not familiar with the surroundings. He planned to run 5 laps around the neighborhood. At the edge of the woods in the neighborhood, 3 to 5 old men were practicing Tai Chi. Their movements were as smooth as water. In the square, a group of Annies got up early and danced to the beat of the music. When he saw such a peaceful scene, he felt a little dazed, even though he had just come out of the game. After running, he found a breakfast shop and bought a few servings of soy milk, fried dough sticks, steamed buns, and rice noodle rolls. When he got home, he put the breakfast on the table. He took a change of clothes and prepared to take a hot shower. Pushing open the bathroom door, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. He saw Sun Xiaoya squatting on the toilet, her eyes sleepy and her hair messy. She was wearing printed pajamas, and her pajamas were pushed down to her feet. A pair of fair and tender hands were holding onto the underwear with a kitty printed on it. She was about to get up. Her white thighs were exposed to the air, and the black hair at the base of her thighs could be seen clearly. When he raised his head and saw Ouyang Shaw, his slightly narrowed eyes instantly widened. "Ah, pervert!" Sun Xiao let out a scream that surpassed the limit of a human's voice. Only now did Ouyang Shuo react, and he turned around and fled. After closing the door, he subconsciously wiped his nose with his hand. Phew! Fortunately, he didn't have a nosebleed. Otherwise, he would be embarrassed. In his mind, the scene just now flashed clearly. White thighs, naughty black fur. No, I can't continue thinking about it. It's too evil. In order to avoid any awkwardness, Ouyang Shuo walked towards Binger's room. The little lass still hadn't woken up. It seemed that she had really gone crazy yesterday and hadn't recovered yet. Ouyang Shuo pushed open the door and pulled open the curtains. The warm sunlight instantly filled the entire room. Walking to the side of the bed, Binger, who was in a deep sleep, was pouting, her chubby little hands naughtily reaching outside the blanket, looking extremely adorable. He pinched the little lass's nose and said, "Lazy little pig, get up." The little girl slapped away Ouyang Shua's mischievous hand. She didn't even open her eyes as she murmured in a daze, "Bad brother, you only know how to bully Bing. Binger wants to sleep a little longer. I'm sleepy. Baby, I can't sleep anymore. Otherwise, I'll be late for school." The little girl reluctantly opened her eyes and hurriedly said, "Ah, Binger forgot that I have to go to school today. Smelly brother, why didn't you wake me up earlier?" With a grunt, she crawled out of the blanket and went to wash up. Returning to the living room, Sun Xiaoya had already changed her clothes and was about to go out. When she saw Ouyang Shua, a trace of redness flashed across her face, and she fiercely glared at him. Ouyang Shua was also a little embarrassed. Although it wasn't his fault, the other party was a girl after all. He would be at a disadvantage no matter what. As a man, he had to be more generous. He pretended that nothing had happened and said calmly, "I bought breakfast. Let's eat together." This girl didn't seem to be a pretentious person. She didn't stand on ceremony and nodded in agreement. After Binger washed up, he changed his clothes. The three of them sat together and enjoyed a delicious breakfast. After breakfast, Sun Xiaoya left first. Ouyang Shua asked Bing to wait for him and quickly returned to his room to change his clothes. Today, he was going to personally send the little lass to school. Along the way, the little girl was all smiles. There was no need to mention how happy her brother was to personally send her to school. After returning from school, Ouyang Shua turned on his optical computer and logged into the gaming forum. The forum ID was directly tied to the game ID, but players were allowed to post anonymously. In the pinned thread, a thread with the ID Head Butler was the most popular. The thread was called "Buying Game Coins at a High Price, Long-Term Effective." The thread mentioned that the head butler was going to exchange 1 credit for 1 copper coin for an unlimited amount of game coins. According to this price, 1 gold coin could be exchanged for 10,000 credits in the game. As soon as the thread was published, it caused an uproar. The crowd of players was overjoyed, looking forward to getting rich overnight. The indirect result of this thread was that countless professional gaming studios saw the potential of Earth on 1E. Countless gold farming groups entered Earth on 1E, ready to go all out. Ouyang Shua knew this person. The head butler was a very famous person in his previous life. His real identity was the financial manager of Lord Chunshin, one of the 6 hegemons of Han. And Lord Chunshin's real identity was Zhao Mingsheng, the first successor of the Tiana Financial Group. He was a contradictory character who combined the craftiness of a businessman with the style of an ancient scholar. The Tiana Financial Group was the largest financial group in China, second to none. This financial group specialized in high-end equipment, especially the manufacturing of aerospace equipment. Earth on 1, it was commissioned to be manufactured by a company under the Tiana Financial Group. Its space exploration company was the largest commercial aerospace company in the Federation, and its aerospace technology was on par with the Federal Space Agency. The 6 hegemons of Han were basically the same in real life, and each of them was favored by the heavens. However, the other 5 were not as high profile as Zhao Mingsheng. They were also short of gold coins, but they arranged for agents to purchase them in secret. Of course, in terms of wealth, Zhao Mingsheng was indeed the best. Ouyang Shua was not worried that these tycoons would be able to purchase large amounts of gold coins. Earth on 1E was a very balanced game, and the individual adventure mode was also very close to reality. The current players could barely keep themselves warm and could not even gather enough money to buy equipment. It would take at least a month for the high-end players to get out of this predicament and start to make a profit. Even professional gold farming groups could not break away from the basic rules of the game. As expected, on the forums, whether it was solo players or lord players, they were all complaining about how the game was too realistic. When fighting monsters in the wild, non-humanoid monsters did not drop anything. and could only collect their corpses. Humanoid monsters did drop money and equipment, but the bandits and roving bandits were not something that the players could fight against at this stage. The items in the shops were extremely expensive. On the first day of the game, there were very few people who could own a bronze-grade weapon. Even if they had a weapon, the cost of a single repair could bankrupt the players. Lower players were not much better off. There were too many buildings to build, and the beginner resource bags from the village building mission were not enough. They could not afford building blueprints. They could go to the wilderness to get blueprints. At this stage, they did not have any soldiers, and it was not realistic to charge into a bandit's lair. The lords who used summoning talismans to summon generals were fine, and at least they had some combat power. The lords who summoned civil officials were in a tragic situation, and their territories were completely defenseless. With this comparison, Ouyang Shuo finally knew how fortunate he was. If he did not have the strategy from his previous life, which allowed him to complete the village building mission with a 100% success rate and an additional 100 gold coins, he would have become a member of the dissing party. At the same time, Ouyang Shuo reminded himself that he could not be complacent just because he had a small lead in the early stages. Only by continuously converting the advantages in the early stages into the potential of the territory development could he accumulate advantages and build up the foundation of his hegemony. After all, the difficulties that the players faced were only temporary. As long as they got through the initial accumulation period, the gap would quickly shrink, especially the organizations represented by the 6 lords of Handan City. They had money and manpower. In comparison, he was really alone. The core of Earth on 1E was teamwork, and there was no such thing as being able to fight 10,000 people. It seemed that at the right time, he had to find a lord who was more famous in his previous life and had similar interests to him to form an alliance. He could also recruit some talented players in his territory, and Ouyang Shuo believed that he could handle it with his own abilities. Otherwise, if he just relied on himself, he would eventually fall behind, and it would be hard for him to achieve anything. As long as the time was right, an alliance could be carried out. If he wanted to recruit players into his territory, he would have to wait for a year. At that time, everyone would have no worries, and everyone would be on the same starting line. Only then would he not be afraid that the players would be easily instigated by the big powers. After closing the forum, Ouyang Shuo began to search for all kinds of historical information online. There is a famous saying in the game in his previous life: a lord who is not familiar with history is not a qualified lord. The entire game world was created by Gaia based on historical data. If you are not familiar with history, you would not be able to truly fit in with the game. Ouyang Shuo was prepared to make this his main homework in the day and stick to it for a long time. At 4:30 p.m., Binger returned home from school. At 6 p.m., Sun Xiaoye returned home from school. At this time, Ouyang Shuo had already prepared dinner. At the dining table, Binger chattered to her brother about the interesting things that happened in school. Xiao Ming overslept and was late for school and was punished by the teacher's stand. Xiao Li wore a new dress today, and Xiao Hua purposely dirted it. When she reported it to the teacher made Xiao Hua apologize to Xiao Li in front of the whole class. Xiao Ai's braids were very beautiful today, and the girls gathered around, asking Xiao Ai to teach them how to braid their hair. Ouyang Shuo listened with a smile. The siblings had already developed a tacit understanding. Only he knew how big of a blow the death of their parents was to Binger. For a long time, this child became autistic and withdrawn. It was Ouyang Shuo, her brother, who accompanied her every day, comforted her, and made her happy, that allowed her to slowly recover. To Binger, Ouyang Shuo was both a brother and a father. The relationship between siblings was not something that outsiders could understand. That blow turned Binger from a lively and active monkey to a quiet girl. She only had 2 or 3 good friends in class. Only in front of her brother, Ouyang Shuo, would the little girl become a happy deer, carefree. Being able to see Binger grow up healthily and happily was the greatest happiness in Ouyang Shuo's life. Unfortunately, in the following year, Ouyang Shuo had to log into the game early every night. He could no longer accompany her to draw or do her homework. He could no longer coax her to sleep or tell her stories. Thinking that this child had to do her homework alone in her room every night and go to bed alone, Ouyang Shua's heart twitched. This was absolutely unacceptable, even if he had to play a little later. Looking up and seeing Sun Xiaoya sitting opposite him, Ouyang Shua gradually had an idea. After dinner, Xiaoya rushed to wash the dishes. It was obvious that she had a good family. After she finished washing the dishes, Ouyang Shua asked Binger to go back to her room to do her homework and stopped Xiaoya, who was about to go back to her room. Xiaoya, wait a minute. I have something to discuss with you. Thinking of the embarrassing incident in the morning, she thought that Ouyang Shua wanted to talk to her about this. The little girl's face suddenly turned red, and she stuttered a little. Let's discuss what? I am going back to my room to rest. Seeing Xiaoya's expression, Ouyang Shua was a little confused, and he continued, something important. Don't worry, it won't take up much of your time. Sit down and talk. Something important? Did I really guess it right? What does he want to do? He won't say something old-fashioned, like taking responsibility for me, right? Sun Xiaoya let her imagination run wild as she slowly sat on the sofa. Seeing that this girl was a little abnormal, Ouyang Shua was helpless and could only cut to the chase. It's like this. You know, yesterday I started playing a new game called Earth on 1E. This game is very important to me, and I have to go online every night at 8 o'clock. Sun Xiaoya suddenly interrupted Ouyang Shua. What? This guy didn't want to talk about that. He must have forgotten. Pervert, hooligan. A woman's mind was so unpredictable. Seeing Ouyang Shua looking at her with a surprised face, Sun Xiaoya wanted to leave 2 shoe prints on that handsome face. At this time, she could only hide her embarrassment and forced a smile and said, you continue. No matter how slow Ouyang Shua was, he could see that there was something wrong with this girl. But he had no choice because he was asking for help. He could only pretend that he didn't see anything and said, actually, what I want to say is very simple. I hope that you can replace me at night to coax Binger to sleep and tell her a bedtime fairy tale. As long as you agree to help, you can mention any conditions you have. Oh, this, no problem. Actually, I like Binger very much, and I see her as a younger sister. So don't mention any conditions. That's too formal. As long as I can eat Chef Ouyang's dinner every night, I'll be satisfied. Sun Xiaoya said straightforwardly. Thank you. Then you've done me a big favor. Ouyang Shua didn't mention anything about repayment. Some favors should be kept in mind. The atmosphere was a little awkward, and the two didn't have the mood to talk anymore, so they went back to their respective rooms. Ouyang Shua went to Binger's room and saw the little girl quietly doing her homework at the desk. She looked so cute. After telling Binger that Sister Xiaoya would tell her a story, he kissed her on the forehead and went back to his room. Although the little girl was a little unwilling, she was still sensible and didn't pester her brother. Chapter 9. When Ouyang Shua went online, it was exactly 8 in the morning in the game. Shouts and cheers could be heard from outside the door. When he opened the door, he saw Shi Wansui practicing his spear techniques in the courtyard. Zhao Daxian and the others watched in fascination, occasionally cheering. Seeing Ouyang Shua come out, everyone bowed and greeted him. My lord! Ouyang Shua hurriedly returned the greeting and said, no need to be so polite. As the saying goes, a day's work starts in the morning. We still have a lot of things to do today. As for the specifics, I will go to the village entrance to welcome my new companions and make arrangements. If you have time, you can come with me. My lord, please instruct us. Everyone once again arrived at the village entrance. Sure enough, they could see a group of people gathered at the village entrance from afar. They were similarly sallow and emaciated, with the same ragged clothes. The difference was that there were men and women, old and young, in this group of 15 people. They had obviously brought more luggage with them, as if they were migrating. The leader was an old man in his 50s. He had a head of white hair, but his body was very strong. After a simple introduction, everyone did not stay at the village entrance for long. Ouyang Shua personally took the old man's luggage and led the way back to the village. When Zhao Dexian and the others saw the Lord's actions, they tactfully took the initiative to help carry the luggage and followed behind. Respecting the old and loving the young was a traditional virtue of the Chinese people. Ouyang Shuo hoped to pass this message to all the people in his territory. When they returned to the Lord's mansion, they immediately started a fire to cook. Among the 15 people, there was a middle-aged couple. The husband was a beginner blacksmith, and the wife was a cook. After breakfast, Ouyang Shuo began to understand everyone's situation in detail. Among the 15 people, there were 5 special talents, and the remaining 10 were ordinary farmers. The old man in his 50s was surnamed Song. He was a senior doctor and the first senior talent in Shanghai village. The shepherd boy was 11 or 12 years old. He had dark skin and a thin figure. He was an orphan. The beginner blacksmith, Li Taizhu, was tall and sturdy. His eyes were bright and full of expression. He did not look like a simple-minded person. The wife, Li Shi, was a beginner chef and a middle-aged woman. The most special one was a young woman. This woman was about 16 years old and had a beautiful appearance. Her surname was Chui, and her maiden name was Yingyu. She was originally the daughter of a merchant family and had been learning business from her father since she was young. Half a month ago, when he was traveling with his family's caravan, they encountered bandits. It was only under the protection of his guards that he managed to escape. Chui Yingyu wandered around in the wilderness, experiencing hardships and dangers, almost starving to death. It was Dr. Song who saved her. In the end, she followed the current group of vagrants to Shanghai village. After roughly understanding the situation of this group of refugees, Ouyang Shuo immediately gathered everyone in the courtyard. Close to 30 people quickly gathered, and it could be considered a gathering place. Ouyang Shuo was filled with lofty sentiments as he looked at the gradually growing group. He loudly said, "Today another 15 brothers and sisters have joined the big family of Shanghai village." For the Shanghai village to grow from nothing to something, it required the combined efforts of everyone present. As the saying goes, everything is difficult at the beginning. There are 3 main things we need to do today. First, we must repair all the fences and provide the village with reliable security. Secondly, we must build a small habitation to provide a place for all. Finally, we had to build the canteen to provide a place for everyone to eat. Time was tight, and the mission was heavy. I hope that everyone will work together and obey the leadership. Strive to finish building all the houses before nightfall. At night, we will hold a welcoming dinner for everyone. Everyone was excited, and they replied in unison, "We will follow your orders, sir." Now, I will announce the specific personnel arrangements. Zhao Dexian immediately stepped forward, bowed, and replied, "Present. I officially appoint you as the construction team leader, in charge of coordinating all of the village's construction projects. Thank you for your promotion, sir." After saying this, he returned to his original position. System notification. Zhao Daxian has been promoted by the Lord. Loyalty increased by 5 points. Zhao Yufeng. Present. Zhao Yufeng also hurriedly stepped forward. I appoint you as the acting director of the elementary lumberyard, in charge of transporting wood for the territory's construction. Thank you for your promotion, sir. After saying this, he also returned to his original position. System notification. Zhao Yufeng has been promoted by the Lord. Loyalty increased by 5 points. The rest of you will not be appointed for now. Once you have made sufficient contributions to the territory, you will be promoted. In addition, Dr. Song will be in charge of gathering medicinal herbs. Miss Chui will be in charge of logistics. Madam Li will be in charge of food, and second child will be by my side. The above 4 people will not participate in the distribution of labor. The rest will be temporarily assigned to the construction team. Dr. Song and the other 3 stepped forward to express their gratitude. Thank you, sir. Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and said, "Everyone, start working. Sir, Miss Chui and second child, please stay for a while." After saying this, Ouyang Shuo stopped Zhao Dexian, who was about to leave, and gave him the blueprints of the residential courtyard and the canteen. He also told him the detailed address of the residential courtyard and canteen. The residential courtyard was located in the western area from south to north. The canteen was also built in the southwest, close to the administrative center. After explaining everything, except for Zhao Yufeng, the lone field director, the rest of the people went out to work under Zhao Dexin's lead. Zhao Yufeng arrived in front of Ouyang Shuo and cautiously said, "Sir, I'm the only one in the lumberyard. I'm afraid that my ability is limited and I'll fail you." Ouyang Shuo patted his shoulder and said with a smile, "Don't worry. The difficulty is only temporary. When the time is right, I will send more people to the lumberyard. Yesterday, I bought 500 units of wood from the market, so it's still manageable for the time being. What you need to do now is to clearly explore the distribution of the woods in the territory and calculate the total amount of wood resources. Also, pay attention to see if there are any precious trees and mark them. Field Director Zhao, your task is very difficult." Zhao Yufeng was suddenly enlightened and respectfully said, "Thank you, sir, for your advice. I'll definitely do a good job." "All right, go to your work." After sending Zhao Yufeng away, Ouyang Shuo turned to Dr. Song and the other two, who were waiting at the side, and said, "Dr. Song, the village can't build a medical center for you for the time being. How about this? You stay in the Lord's mansion first. I'll build a medical center for you as soon as the territory is upgraded to a second-class village." Ouyang Shuo was very courteous to this senior doctor. Dr. Song's face was calm and tranquil. He indifferently replied, "Sir's arrangement is very thoughtful. This old man has nothing else to ask. But Miss Chui is a young lady from a big family, so this old man also has some relationship with her. Now that I'm stranded here, I hope that Sir can take care of me. This old man will be very grateful." Ouyang Shuo quickly replied, "That's natural. How about this? I want to recognize Miss Chui as my younger sister. What do you think?" He turned to look at Miss Chui. Chui Yingyu hasn't expressed her opinion yet, but Dr. Song took the initiative and said, "That's great. With this layer of relationship, no one can say anything if Milord takes care of them." Then he turned to Chui Yingyu and said, "Yingyu, this old man will take the initiative to agree for you. What do you think?" Although Chui Yingyu was a merchant's daughter, she was also a young lady from a big family. Her appearance was gorgeous, and her temperament was gentle. She had the charm of a Jiangnan woman. Her bitter experience didn't erase her beauty. Instead, it added a trace of strength to her gentleness. She slowly walked to the front of Dr. Song, bowed, and said with deep affection, "Thanks to Senior's care, and you was able to protect my body. Now, Senior is thinking about everything for me. Yingyu is very grateful. Everything will be arranged by Senior." Dr. Song hurriedly helped her up and said, Good child. Since that's the case, quickly go and greet your sworn brother." Chui Yingyu took the opportunity to get up, turned her head, and bowed to Ouyang Shuo. She said in a crisp voice, "Little sister Yingyu greets big brother. Thank you for taking care of me. Little sister is very grateful." Ouyang Shuo hurriedly returned the greeting and said, "There's no need for that. It's my good fortune to be able to recognize Miss as my sworn sister. My surname is Ouyang, and you can just call me by my name. Big brother Ouyang, call me Yuer. My family calls me that too, he." After greeting each other and confirming their identity as brother and sister, Chui Yingyu was no longer as reserved as before. She slightly recovered a trace of her original nature. System notification. Congratulations to player not saying that has no clothes and NPC Chui Yingyu for becoming sworn siblings of the opposite sex. Triggered the system's swearing system. Awarded 200 reputation points. At the same time, he checked Chui Yingyu's attributes. Name, Chui Yingyu Silver. Identity, Shanghai Village Villager. Leader Sister. Profession, Merchant. Loyalty, 85 Specialties. Careful calculation, increases territory trade profits by 1. Remarks, daughter of the Chui family, a business aristocratic family. She has a gentle temperament and is good at doing business. She is not inferior to men. She was actually a silver rank talent. It was really a pleasant surprise. As expected of the swearing system, She had 85 loyalty points at the beginning. She was already a talent that could be completely trusted. Ouyang Shuan no longer hesitated. He untied the resource bag from his waist and handed it to Yuer. He said solemnly, Yuer, from now on, we are a family. I will hand the territory's resources to you for safekeeping. In the future, I will need you to take care of the territory's resources. Yuer solemnly took the resource bag and asked for the method to use it. Only then did she slowly say, Thank you, big brother Ouyang. Yuer will definitely live up to your trust. After arranging Dr. Song and Shui Ingyo's tasks, Ouyang Shuo waved at the little shepherd boy, who was hiding to the side and playing with the black wolf pup. He said loudly, Second child, come here. Yesterday evening, Ouyang Shuo had asked Zhao Yufang to make a wooden cage. The bottom of the cage was covered with hay. It would be a small nest for the pup. Second child was still young. When he saw the black pup, he wanted to play with it. He sneaked over to play with it. When he heard the Lord's call, his body trembled reflexively. He thought that it would be like working in the landlord's house. If he was careless, he would be punished. He was full of fear. Hey, second child timidly trotted back. Ouyang Shuo called him to his side and patted his head. He said warmly, Don't be afraid. Tell me, what did you do before? Second child lowered his head and said, I used to help the landlord herd cattle. Herd cattle? We don't have cattle for you to herd now. How about this? You will follow me and temporarily act as a servant. When you have time, you will follow Sister Chui and practice calligraphy. Do you understand? Hearing that not only would he not be punished, but he would also have the opportunity to study and practice calligraphy, second child nodded excitedly and said loudly, Understood. He thought that the Lord and the landlord were really different. Ouyang Shuo continued, Well, study well and become a useful talent for the territory in the future. In addition, I have an important task for you. He pointed at the black wolfhound pup in the cage at the side of the courtyard and continued, The pup you were playing with just now, I gave it a name. It's called Blacktooth. In the future, you will take care of Hei Ya's daily life. Can you do that? Second child was even happier when he heard that he would take care of Hei Ya. He nodded vigorously and said, Yes. Ouyang Shuo touched his head and said, Well, go and play. I will call you if there is anything. After arranging everyone's tasks, Ouyang Shuo had time to find Shi Wansui and ask him about the situation of the wild goats he found yesterday. He made up his mind to catch these wild goats and bring them back to the territory to rear. Chapter 10. Ouyang Shuo walked to Shi Wansui's room and saw that he was reading a military book, so he didn't disturb him. However, due to his general's intuition, Shi Wansui quickly realized that someone was watching him. He turned around and saw Ouyang Shuo standing at the door. He hurriedly got up and bowed. Your Highness. Then he asked doubtfully, Your Highness is here. Why don't you come in? I'm afraid. Ouyang Shuo laughed. I can't bear to disturb you after seeing how hard-working you are. Shi Wansui smiled foolishly and scratched his head. I'll let your Highness see me make a fool of myself. I don't have any hobbies other than reading military books in my spare time. Your Highness, do you have any instructions for me? I have something to ask you, General. When you returned yesterday, you said that you encountered a herd of wild goats. I don't know how many there were. Is there a way to find them again? Ouyang Shuo asked with a smile. Shi Wansui frowned and thought for a while. He said slowly, I remember that there were about 50 goats. 2 of them were bitten to death on the spot, and the rest fled in all directions. Your Highness, what do you mean? It's like this. There are almost no livestock in the territory, and meat is extremely scarce. Yesterday, I heard you mention wild goats. I'm wondering if I can capture them and bring them back to the territory to domesticate. Shi Wansui was slightly stunned. Your Highness is indeed far-sighted. I'm impressed. Since your Highness places such importance on it, I'll make another trip to see if I can follow their footprints and find them again. All right. Thank you for your hard work, General. I'll wait for your good news. After sending Shi Wansui off, Ouyang Shuo began to wander around the village to check on the progress of construction. During breaks, he sat on the ground and chatted with the villagers while listening to them talk about their daily lives. Through this method, the villagers gradually acknowledged this lord who was meticulous in his work and approachable in his daily life. When they saw him, they would take the initiative to greet him. Ouyang Shuo wasn't arrogant and responded with a smile. The fence was completed before lunch. A simple wooden gate tower was erected at the main gate of the village. On the gate tower, the words Shanghai Village were engraved, announcing that Shanghai Village had officially taken root in the wilderness. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Shi Wansui came back early with good news and bad news. The good news was that they encountered a roving bandit on horseback. After killing him, they obtained a war horse and an iron spear. The bad news was that the group of wild goats had vanished without a trace, and it caused Ouyang Shuo to feel a great sense of loss. Taking the warhorse and spear from Shi Wansui, Ouyang Shuo inspected their attributes. Name: inferior warhorse, bronze. Weight: 30 kg. Speed: 20 km per day. Consumption: 3 units of rations / day. Evaluation: this is a warhorse that can barely be ridden, but definitely cannot be used on the battlefield. Name: inferior iron spear, bronze. Hardness: 5. Toughness: 3. Evaluation: a defective iron spear. Please use it with caution. At this stage of the game, bronze equipment was still a rarity. Yet, Ouyang Shuo had obtained 2 pieces in one go. If other players were to find out about this, they would be envious. This was the advantage of Lord-class players. The higher the risk, the higher the reward. A roving bandit that could ride a horse was at least level 20. In the eyes of other players, these high-level monsters were nothing in front of Shi Wansui, an Emperor-class general. With the warhorse and iron spear, Ouyang Shuo could also go out and patrol the territory. He no longer had to stay in the village all day. The basic horsemanship and basic marksmanship that he had learned before could also be put to good use. In the evening, the residential courtyard and the canteen were completed. After a banquet was held in the newly completed canteen, Ouyang Shuo began to redistribute everyone's accommodation. In the middle of the main hall of the Lord's mansion was the living room, which was used to receive guests and discuss matters. There were 2 rooms on the left and right of the living room. The one on the east was the village chief's office, and the one on the west was his bedroom. There were 2 rooms on the east and west sides of the courtyard. Shi Wansui lived in the innermost room of the eastern wing. Zhao Daxian and the others lived in the outer room. Last night, the 10 of them made a bed on the floor and barely managed to settle down. After the residential courtyard was completed, it could accommodate 20 people. Tonight, most of the 10 people would move out, leaving only Zhao Daxian and Zhao Yufeng, who had positions. The west wing was empty, so Ouyang Shuo arranged for Cui Yingyu to live in the innermost room, while Dr. Song and the second child lived in the outer room. In the next 3 days, the territory began to undergo large-scale construction. The village-level toilet, primary blacksmith shop, primary quarry, and primary grocery store were all built. In addition, 4 new residential courtyards were added. The primary lumberyard and primary quarry were also put into operation. 10 farmers were arranged to produce 100 units of wood and 50 units of stone every day. It was unknown if the good luck from the past 2 days was used up, but among the 45 refugees that spawned in these 3 days, there were only 3 special talents. The primary stonemason, Zheng Shampao, was a middle-aged man. He was appointed by Ouyang Shuo to be the director of the primary quarry. The peddler, Li Fugue, was a fat old man. He was in charge of the primary grocery store. The biggest surprise was a senior shipwright. He was also the second senior talent that appeared in the territory. The shipwright was called Zheng Dahai. He was in his 30s, had dark skin, and looked short and capable. Early in the morning, Ouyang Shuo woke up on time, as usual. When he opened the door, he saw a lively scene in the courtyard. Shi Wansui was still practicing his spear technique with vigor and vigor. For a general like him, practicing martial arts had long been integrated into his life. If he didn't practice for a day, he would feel itchy all over. Dr. Song was on the other side of the courtyard, practicing the 5 animals' frolics. His movements were like floating clouds and flowing water. In the corner of the courtyard, second child was playing with He, Ye, and feeding the little guy. Ever since he got the inferior iron spear 3 days ago, he also joined the ranks of practicing martial arts in the morning. With the guidance of a spear master like Sherwan Sui, he naturally didn't have to take many detours. As the saying goes, a spear is the most profound and difficult to learn among all the military weapons. To practice a spear, one must first start with a large spear. The so-called large spear was to hold the spear horizontally with one hand and look at the spear tip for 3 to 5 hours every day until he could accurately feel the changes brought about by a small bug falling on the spear. The reason why Ouyang Shua practiced this way was related to the skill setting in the game. In Earth on 1E, the use of skills was divided into the system guidance mode and the free mode. There was no need to talk about the system guidance mode. After learning the skill book, there was no need to care about it. When fighting monsters, the system would automatically guide the player to use the skill. The free mode was an original creation of Earth on 1E. After the player learned the skill, the content of the book would be completely imprinted in their mind. At this time, the player would follow the moves and training tips in their mind and practice diligently. It was just like practicing martial arts in real life. When the player practiced in-game, the system would use the player's mental connection to transmit the memory of the practice to the real body. This kind of practice, through repeated strengthening, would become the body's instinct. In this way, the player would be able to awaken the body's memory with a little practice in real life, allowing them to use the martial arts in the game in the real world. Of course, there was a prerequisite to choosing the free mode. That was, the player could only choose the free mode by learning a specific skill book. The so-called specific skill book was a cultivation technique that Gaia had derived from real martial arts manuals in real life. The ancient martial arts families in real life could obtain the qualifications to participate in the closed beta and a custom-made game capsule by contributing martial arts manuals. More importantly, with Gaia's extremely powerful deduction and calculation ability, with the existing martial arts manuals as a foundation, combined with the results of modern human medical research, a more complete and scientific martial arts manual could be derived. Among these manuals, the cultivation of inner strength and vital energy was the most valuable. Skills like marksmanship were ultimately a kind of physical memory. To truly master it, one would need to practice repeatedly in real life. Cultivating inner strength was completely different. It was to guide the body to produce inner strength through the mind, then control the vital energy to circulate in the meridians. Therefore, players could cultivate inner strength in the game. In the game capsule in real life, the smart system would stimulate the body to produce inner strength through electric current, while the nutrient delivery system would precisely deliver the energy needed for cultivation. It was even more efficient than directly practicing in real life, perfectly combining ancient martial arts and modern technology. In fact, this was also a part of the interstellar migration plan, codenamed Hope. After all, no one knew what kind of state planet Hope was in at the moment. Whether it was a primitive planet, or whether it had evolved into an intelligent race, or even a civilization was born, everything was unknown. Under such circumstances, strengthening the physical fitness of the people was a good choice, no matter how one looked at it. These more scientific martial arts manuals were placed in various corners of the game by Gaia, allowing players to dig through them. Players in the early stages were unable to distinguish the authenticity of these manuals. Only a year later, when all humans had logged into the game, would Gaia announce the method to distinguish the authenticity. The method was very simple. All the manuals that had the word sutra or canon at the end were real, while all the manuals that had the word technique or technique at the end were fake. There was only one exception, and that was if all the basic skills were real. For example, the basic horsemanship and basic spear arts that Ouyang Shua had learned. In his previous life, the ancient martial arts family represented by one of the Handan's 6 hegemons, Feng Qingyang, relied on his martial arts foundation in real life. He did not need the method provided by Gaia to quickly determine the authenticity of the manuals. In a year's time, he had secretly hoarded a large number of authentic manuals. After Gaia announced the truth, he had made a killing. In this life, Ouyang Shaw naturally would not let them monopolize all the glory. Back to the front. Ouyang Shaw began practicing the great spear stance according to the key points in basic spear arts. He was prepared to continue practicing this way. Before finding a good genuine spear art manual, he wouldn't practice other spear arts. As a reincarnated person, he naturally wanted to practice the best. Because of this pride, Ouyang Shaw did not even learn the basic internal strength techniques. In the China server, there was a set of the highest internal strength techniques. It had been split into 3 manuals by Gaia. In the 5 years of his previous life, only the first 2 had appeared, and they were obtained by different players. In this life, Ouyang Shaw's goal was to gather all 3 manuals and combine them into the strongest internal strength technique in history. It would be his strongest trump card. After practicing the great spear stance for an entire hour, Ouyang Shaw ended his morning practice. Carrying his spear, he walked towards the meeting hall. Every morning at 9 a.m., the main management personnel of the territory had to attend the meeting hall. This was a rule he had set the day before. At this stage, there were only 5 people qualified to attend the meeting. They were General Shi Wan Sui, Logistics Manager Chui Yingyu, Construction Team Leader Zhao Daxian, Junior Sawmill Manager Zhao Yufang, and Junior Quarry Manager Zheng Xiaopao. In addition, according to the different topics of discussion, the relevant personnel would be invited to attend the meeting. For example, today's topic of discussion was related to the construction of the pier. Ouyang Shaw had invited senior shipwright Zheng Dehai to attend the meeting yesterday. Chapter 11. When Ouyang Shaw walked into the meeting hall, everyone was already there. There was a landscape painting on the wall in front of the meeting hall. The lines were rough and there were only a few strokes, but it looked majestic. There was a rosewood chair in the middle with 3 ordinary wooden chairs on each side. Shi Wansui sat first on the left, followed by Zhao Daxian and Zheng Xiaopao. Chui Yingyu sat first on the right, followed by Zhao Yufang and Zheng Dehai. After greeting everyone, Ouyang Shaw sat on the rosewood chair and said bluntly, "Let's start the meeting. Yingyu, report the situation of the territory's resources." "Yes," Chui Yingyu answered crisply and stood up. "In terms of resources, the territory has 475 units of grain, 220 units of wood, 390 units of stone, and 450 units of iron ore. In terms of resource output, the lumberyard can produce 100 units of wood per day, and the quarry can produce 50 units of stone per day. According to the current construction progress of the territory, it is estimated that there will be a shortage of wood very soon. I suggest increasing the number of people working in the lumberyard." Report complete. After listening to Yingyu's report, Ouyang Shaw didn't respond immediately. He first took the opportunity to look at the construction blueprints he bought from the primary market to see their construction requirements. Ferry provides transportation between the 2 sides of the river. Construction requirements: ferry construction blueprints, 40 units of wood, 20 units of stone. Construction time, 1 day. Primary dock provides docking for ordinary civilian ships, provides cargo distribution. Construction requirements: dock construction blueprints, 400 units of wood, 200 units of stone. Construction time, 3 days. Primary shipyard builds ordinary civilian ships, including ordinary fishing boats and passenger ships. Construction requirements: primary shipbuilder, 100 units of wood, 50 units of stone. Construction time, 2 days. Village temple, a place of faith for the villagers, increases the satisfaction of the residents. Construction requirements: village temple construction blueprints, 400 units of wood, 350 units of stone. Construction time, 2 days. He calculated in his heart. In addition to the primary barracks and 5 residential courtyards that hadn't been built yet, the number of resources needed for a level 1 village was very clear. After finishing his calculations, Ouyang Shaw said, "Very good." Yingyu's report was very detailed and her analysis was on point. She found the problem. "I just calculated that to complete all the construction projects, we need a total of 124 units of wood and 76 units of stone. This doesn't include the wood for the fishing boats." According to the current wood production rate, it can't keep up with the construction speed, so it's necessary to increase manpower. The territory has a total of 87 people, and there are 70 farmers besides the special talents. Therefore, I have decided to add another 20 farmers to the lumber yard. When he spoke up to here, Ouyang Shuo looked at Zhao Yufeng and said, Mr. Zhao Yufeng, you have to coordinate the work of the people and ensure the supply of wood. Zhao Yufeng quickly got up and said loudly, Yes. Of him. Ouyang Shuo lightly smiled. Also, how's the progress of the task I assigned you a few days ago? Zhao Yufeng frowned slightly and replied, I've searched the entire territory for the past few days and found out that there's only one forest in the west. Zhao said we estimated we can. There's outside. As for the areas outside the territory, we haven't started exploring them yet because we're worried about encountering accidents. Ouyang Shuo pondered for a moment. He looked around at the crowd and said seriously, What Chief Zhao just asked is very sharp. Along with the construction of the territory, the logging and quarries are outside the villages and are vulnerable to attacks from wild beasts and roving bandits. The ferry, dock, and shipyard are also outside the territory, so the security situation is even more severe. These are the core industries of the territory, so we must ensure their safety. I'm afraid it's difficult for General Shi to take care of everything. The most urgent task now is to build the primary barracks, train the militia, and improve the territory's military strength. Ouyang Shuo saw Shi Wansue's excited face, so he smiled and said, General Shi, I'll leave the task of forming the militia to you. The number of people to be recruited is 10. From now on, you can choose the soldiers in the territory. I promise that as long as you like the qualified soldiers, the construction team, the logging field, and the quarry departments will cooperate. Shi Wansui laughed heartily and said loudly, This general is finally no longer a commander without an army. Please rest assured, my lord, this general will definitely train a group of valiant and courageous militia for the territory. I will not disappoint my lord's trust. Ouyang Shuo nodded and turned to look at Zhao Dexin. He took out the building blueprints of the barracks, ferry, dock, shipyard, and village temple from his interspatial pouch and said, Captain Zhao Dexin, these are the remaining 5 blueprints. Take them back. Arrange the construction sequence as a whole, and all the refugees that spawn in the next 4 days, except for special talents, will join your construction team. Zhao Dexin hurriedly got up and took the blueprints. He replied in a loud voice, As long as the materials are supplied in time, I guarantee that all the buildings will be completed in 5 days. After Zhao Dexin returned to his seat, Ouyang Shuo continued, Everyone is clear about the short-term arrangements. I want to take this opportunity to talk about the long-term plan of the territory so that everyone has a clear idea of what to do. I'll give everyone a hint first. The ocean will be the core of the territory's future development. Controlling the ocean will allow us to seize the throat of global trade and occupy the strategic high ground in the future transnational war. To achieve this strategic goal, we need to build a powerful naval fleet. Therefore, shipbuilding will become the core industry of the future. Fortunately, our territory now has a high-level shipbuilder. Ouyang Shuo looked at Zheng Dehai and said to him, Master Zheng, I hope that you can choose suitable shipbuilding apprentices in the territory from now on. Nurture a batch of beginner, intermediate, and even high-level shipbuilders. Zheng Dehai calmly got up and said calmly, I will definitely not let you down, Lord. Ouyang Shuo nodded and surveyed the area before saying, Today's meeting shall end here. After you come down, carry out the various tasks assigned by the meeting. Everyone got up and said in unison, I will definitely not let you down, Lord. January 10th of the first year of Gaia. It was the 10th day of the game's launch. After 4 days of construction, the various construction projects in the territory were nearing completion. The ferry, the beginner barracks, and the remaining 5 residences had been completed. The beginner shipyard, beginner dock, and village temple were also in the final stages. They could be completed by the end of the day. The ferry was built on the northernmost bank of the Friendship River. It was the place where Ouyang Shuo and Shi Wansui had boarded the raft on the first day. It was a very memorable place. Through the ferry, one could cross the Friendship River and explore the hinterland of the Lianzhou Basin. The shipyard and dock were built on the easternmost side of the territory, near the canyon. Among the 60 refugees that had been added in the past 4 days, there were 5 people who were lumberjacks, fishermen, and vegetable farmers. There was a boatman in his 50s. He was healthy, easygoing, and always smiling. Everyone called him Old Man Zhang. Ouyang Shua arranged for him to row a boat at the ferry. He used the simple raft that Ouyang Shua had hidden on the shore. The biggest gain was a young man in his 20s. He looked delicate and pretty. His name was Gu Xiuan. He was a scholar. Although he was not a scholar, he had passed the county and provincial examinations. Furthermore, he was not too old. He was a good scholar. What was more special was that although Gu Xiuan was a dark iron rank talent, he had a special skill. This meant that he had great potential. With a little training, he could be promoted to silver rank at any time. Name: Gu Xiuan, dark iron rank. Identity: Shanghai village clerk. Occupation: civil official, scholar. Loyalty: 75 points. Commander: 25 martial power, 15 intelligence, 35 politics, 40 skill. Knowledgeable: increases the efficiency of territory administration by 5. Evaluation: a scholar from a poor family. He is poor but determined. He is well-read. He is a modest gentleman. Ouyang Shua immediately appointed him as the clerk of the territory. He was in charge of paperwork, population registration, and other work. The first thing he arranged for him was to create a population register. The fact that Gu Xiuan could win the evaluation of a modest gentleman was enough to show his character. Ouyang Shua was going to train him as an important person in the future. Appointing him as the clerk was the most suitable choice. Thinking about the development of the territory, Ouyang Shua walked towards the military camp in the northwest corner. The second child led the inferior warhorse and followed behind him in a dignified manner. At the entrance of the military camp, Shi Wan Sui was waiting with 10 soldiers he had carefully selected. When he saw Ouyang Shua, he laughed and said excitedly, "My lord, you are here. I have been waiting impatiently." Ouyang Shua looked at this brave general who was frank and outspoken. He smiled and said, "All right, I know you are impatient. I will help them change professions now. Go in." The area of the military camp was not large. The main entrance was a lonely wooden gate. There was not even a simple defense tower. After passing through the gate, there was a small drill ground. On the west side of the drill ground, there were 2 archery targets for the soldiers to practice archery. On the west side of the drill ground, there were 5 or 6 scarecrows for the soldiers to practice their fighting skills. There were 3 rooms in the main hall of the military camp. They were the secret room for the job change, the meeting hall, and the officers' lounge. The east side of the military camp was the soldiers' dormitory. There was only one big room with a standard bed. There were 2 rooms in the west side of the military camp, the dining hall and the storage room. When he arrived at the door of the secret room, he pressed his hand on the door. A system notification sounded. System notice: congratulations to player not wearing for unlocking the military camp's secret room. The beginner military camp can change farmers to level 1 militia. Job change fee: 10 silver coins. Please select the number of people to change. 10 people. System notice: number of people to change their jobs has been confirmed. 1 gold coin has been deducted from player not wearing. The door to the secret room slowly opened. The secret room was pitch black, and it was impossible to see what was inside. Ouyang Shua had the 10 farmers form a line and enter the secret room one by one. When the first militia came out, he looked completely different. His tattered clothes were gone, replaced by a brand new linen robe. There was even a simple piece of leather armor tied around his chest. He held a simple spear in his hand, and his demeanor became more resolute and ferocious. Ouyang Shua took the opportunity to look at the militia's attributes. Name: Zhang Dainiu. Identity: Shanghai Village Militia Squad Member. Profession: Militia. Level 1 Combat Power, 2 points. Attack and Defense Index. The standard civilian's combat power is 1 point. Consumption: 2 units of rations/day. Equipment: linen robe, simple leather armor, simple spear. Evaluation: a farmer who has just been released from work. If he wants to become a qualified soldier, he will need to undergo a long period of strict training. Every time a militia increases a level, it will increase his combat power by 1 point. After reaching level 10, he can change his job to an official soldier. Otherwise, he will not be able to increase his level. He needed to be in the intermediate military camp before he could change his job to a soldier. In less than half an hour, all 10 farmers had changed their jobs to level 1 militia. To a real professional soldier, a militia was nothing. But to a civilian, every militia was an existence that could fight 1 against 2. Ouyang Shua organized them into a small militia team led by Shi Wan Sui. Chapter 12. Ouyang Shua's first reaction was to take the militia out to level up. A group of people majestically walked out of the barracks. He rode at the head of the procession on his inferior warhorse. Shi Wan Sui followed behind him on his yellow buckskin horse. Behind them were 10 militias wearing leather armor and wielding spears. Along the way, the villagers stopped what they were doing and pointed at the militias who had changed their clothes. "Hey, Nyo boy, you're amazing. I want to join the army too, but I don't know if the Lord is still recruiting." This was envy. What's so great about it? The army I met before was much more domineering. Their armor was shiny. They didn't even need to lift a finger to blind the enemy. This was envy. Wow, our village finally has an army. Next time we go to cut wood, we don't need to worry about wild wolves. We can stab them with a pole and they'll be finished. This was joy. Wow, the general is so handsome. Auntie, please don't join the fun, okay? No taste. I still think our Lord is more handsome. That stubble, dirty linen clothes, and that skinny warhorse. I can't stand it anymore. He's too handsome. Annie, are you praising me or insulting me? The Lord expressed that he was hurt. The group of new recruits raised their heads and puffed out their chests, looking straight ahead. But their ears were pricked up, quietly remembering everyone's praises in their hearts. Only our Sir Lord, with a black face, rode on a scrawny warhorse and fled in panic. This time, Ouyang Shua chose to level up in the forest in the west. This way, he could not only train the team, but also eliminate hidden dangers for the sawmill, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Riding on the warhorse, he first checked his attributes. Name, don't say I don't have clothes. Title, none. Territory, Shanghai Village. Merit points, 500/800. Title, First Class Baron. Profession, General. Part-time level, level 6, 1000/15900. Reputation, slightly famous, 700/1000. Root bone, 18 comprehension, 20 fortune, 5 charm, 8 commander, 12 martial power, 6 intelligence, 6 politics, 12 talent, locked cultivation techniques, none. Skills, elementary gathering, elementary shipbuilding, elementary diplomacy, elementary detection, elementary weapon mastery, basic horsemanship, basic marksmanship, basic archery mount, inferior warhorse, bronze, equipment, inferior iron spear, bronze. During this period of time, Ouyang Shua had been busy with the construction of his territory. He had not taken a single step out of the village, his level remaining at level 6. Currently, the highest level of players in solo adventure mode had already surpassed level 15. When high-level players teamed up, they could barely kill humanoid monsters. The money and equipment that the humanoid monsters dropped would further increase their strength. Therefore, from now on, the strength of high-end players would enter a relatively rapid growth period. However, he was not in a hurry. Lord-class players did not level up through killing monsters, but through military operations. Lords could obtain 5% of the EXP gained from killing enemies. After a battle, it was normal for them to level up 3 or 4 times in the early stages. After walking for half an hour, the group arrived at the elementary sawmill. After storing the warhorse in the sawmill, they entered the forest. The first thing they encountered was a pack of wild dogs. Ouyang Shua used elementary detection to check the monster's attributes. Name, ordinary wild dog. Level 3. Skills, bite, siege evaluation. This is a group of creatures that rely on teamwork to hunt prey. Their individual combat strength is limited. The wild dogs were only level 3, so they were perfect for training. There were a total of 8 wild dogs in front of them. Ouyang Shua ordered Shi Wan Sui to lure 2 of them away while he dealt with one alone. As for the remaining 5, he asked the militia to form groups of 2 and fight in small groups. Seeing the wild dogs pouncing at him, Ouyang Shua did not retreat. He stood firmly on both feet and held the spear with both hands, his eyes fixed on the wild dogs' movements. Just as the wild dogs were about to leap off the ground, the iron spear pierced straight at the wild dog's neck. Unfortunately, the spear was not accurate, and the spear pierced the wild dog's abdomen. The wild dog's weight and inertia caused a huge force to pass through the spearhead and into Ouyang Shua's hands. He almost lost his grip on the spear. Fortunately, the wild dog was already injured. He quickly pulled out the spearhead and dodged to the right. When the wild dog fell to the ground, he quickly followed up with another shot and finished it off. System notification. Congratulations to player. Don't say you have clothes for killing an ordinary wild dog. 300 experience points awarded. To level up to level 7, 5,900 experience points would be needed, which meant that he had to kill 20 wild dogs. Using elementary gathering technique, he harvested the wild dog's corpse and obtained a piece of wild dog skin. Damaged wild dog skin. 1 quality can be used to make clothes. On the other side, Shi Wan Sui directly stabbed 2 wild dogs to death. At this moment, he was standing on the side and commanding the militia. This was the militia's first time participating in a battle, so their performance was terrible and they were scolded by him. Idiot, hold your spear firmly. If you can't even hold your own weapon, why are you still a soldier? Go home and farm. And you, aim properly before you attack. Are you going to stab the wild dogs or the air? I'm talking to you. Don't just stand there without moving. You need to coordinate your movements with your hands. Ouyang Shua observed from the side and saw that most of the people were panicking. There were only 2 exceptions. Their performance was average, and they knew when to advance or retreat. One of them was the first person to advance, Jean Daniel. He was 23 years old. He was tall and burly, and looked a little silly. According to his introduction, his father was a hunter. In the past, he would often go hunting with his father in the mountains. The other person was called Dog 3. He was 27 years old. He was quite tall, but his body was skinny like a bamboo pole. In the past, he was a tyrant in the village. Everyone called him Elder Dog. After waiting for a full 10 minutes, the 5 wild dogs were finally dealt with. After a round of battle, every militia received 150 experience points and leveled up to level 2. 2 of the militia were bitten by the wild dogs. They could only apply Dr. Song's medicine and bandage them. Taking advantage of this time, Ouyang Shua harvested the 7 wild dogs' corpses. He obtained 2 intact wild dog skins and 3 damaged wild dog skins. 2 of the wild dogs died a little miserably. Not even a piece of damaged skin was left. Intact wild dog skin. Quality 4 points. Suitable for making clothes. After bandaging the wounded, the group continued forward. Along the way, they encountered wild dogs like this one. When there were fewer, they would be in groups of 3 to 5. When there were more, there would be more than 20 of them. Under Shi Wan Sui's guidance, the militia no longer panicked and cooperated well. The morning passed quickly. The militia had leveled up to level 4, and Ouyang Shua was only 20,000 experience points away from level 7. At noon, everyone returned to the lumber yard to rest and eat lunch. When they returned to the forest in the afternoon, they went straight into the depths of the forest. Instead of wild dogs, they encountered level 4 wild wolves and level 5 wild boars. Name: Ordinary Wild Wolf Level. Level 4 Skills: Bite Siege Remarks, a group of cunning and patient hunters. They always give people headaches. Name: Ordinary Wild Boar Level. Level 5 Skills: Charge Remarks, don't be fooled by its stupid appearance. When it charges, it can kill. Wild wolves always appear in groups, rarely with fewer than 10. Wild boars are used to living alone. Usually, there is only one. Occasionally, a male and a female will appear together. At 5 in the afternoon, Ouyang Shua leveled up to level 7. His gathering skill was also upgraded to intermediate level, and he obtained a pile of wild wolf and wild boar skins. The militia had leveled up to level 5, and their combat power had reached 6 points. It became difficult to level up further. Unknowingly, they had already walked to the edge of the territory. A stone tablet was erected on the border. On the side of the stone tablet, the words Shanghai Village were engraved. On the side, there was a small line of words, Gaia, first year, January 1st, indicating when the tablet was erected. Because Ouyang Shuo, as the Lord, was unable to leave the territory, everyone had to go back the way they came. Right at this moment, a wave of humph roars sounded from nearby, accompanied by the rustling of leaves. Even the ground was shaking. They rushed over to take a look. Oh my God, it was a giant wild boar. It was twice the size of an ordinary wild boar. The muscles on both sides of its torso bulged. The boar's back was white and stood up like a hedgehog. 2 pairs of tusks protruded from its mouth. It was obvious that it was not to be trifled with. Ouyang Shuo used elementary detection to take a look. What a terrifying evaluation. Name, Wild Boar King Boss. Level 10 skills. Brutal charge, Earth Stomp evaluation. It's better to meet the King of Hell than to provoke the Wild Boar King. This was an unexpected surprise. In the game, non-humanoid monsters did not drop anything. The only exception was the boss. The boss did not drop money or equipment, but special items. Special items were very rare. If used well, their value would far exceed equipment. To deal with this Wild Boar King, General Shi had to personally take action. Whether it was Ouyang Shuo or the level 5 militia, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. He could not bear to let the militia take the risk. After all, if an NPC died, they died. They could not be revived like players. Shi Wansui had been a nanny and coach for an entire day. He was already sick of it. When he saw the Wild Boar King, he immediately became excited. He first took out the white birch bough on his back, aimed at the Wild Boar King's eyes, and with a swoosh, shot the Wild Boar King's right eye. The Wild Boar King howled and immediately used brutal charge, rushing towards Shi Wansui. At this time, Ouyang Shuo and the militia had already quietly retreated to the side of the grass and hid. Shi Wansui was worthy of being called a fierce general. He did not hide. Instead, he rushed towards the Wild Boar King. Seeing that the man and the beast were about to collide, the Wild Boar King suddenly stopped and stomped its front foot, causing the earth stomp to shake. The ground where Shi Wansui was standing suddenly collapsed, and he was about to fall to the ground. The Wild Boar King saw the opportunity and suddenly started running again. The Wild Boar King lowered its head slightly, and its 2 pairs of fangs shone under the light of the setting sun. At this critical moment, Shi Wansui's left hand was on the ground, and his elbow contracted and opened. His whole body was like a spring, and with a swoosh, he narrowly escaped the Wild Boar King's charge. Shi Wansui turned his body in the air, and with the sole of his foot on the tree, his body shot towards the Wild Boar King like a cannonball. The Damascus steel spear in his hand was cold and threatening. Before the Wild Boar King could react, the Damascus steel spear had already pierced its neck. At this moment, Shi Wansui was in the air, and he was about to hit the Wild Boar King. He immediately stretched his legs forward, and with one step, he stared at the Wild Boar King's back, and his whole body shot out again. His right hand pulled out the Damascus steel spear, and blood gushed out. The Wild Boar King continued to rush forward a few steps, and due to excessive blood loss, it fell to the ground. Because the Wild Boar King was killed by Shi Wansui alone, the others did not receive any experience points. Good. The general is indeed powerful. Ouyang Shuo was dumbfounded, and he could not help but cheer. He thought to himself, is this the strength of an emperor-level general? His powerful body, exquisite skills, and precise battle awareness were all breathtaking. Shi Wansui stood to the side and slightly gasped for breath. He laughed heartily and said, "Haha, it's really refreshing. It's been a long time since I've exercised my body." What? The battle just now was just a warm-up for you? Ouyang Shuo was speechless. He could only turn his grief into greed, and ran to the wild boar king's corpse to see if there was anything good. After looking around, he only found a booklet. He picked it up, and good heavens, he really picked up a treasure. Wild Boar Taming Technique Manual. After using, you will automatically master wild boar taming techniques. This was called Lost at the Swings, gained at the Mulberry. Previously, Ouyang Shuo wanted to buy a wild goat taming technique manual from a market after finding the wild goats and planned to domesticate them. He did not expect that the wild goats would disappear. At this time, he obtained this wild boar taming technique manual. After putting the booklet into his storage bag, Ouyang Shuo began to harvest the wild boar king's corpse and obtained 4 wild boar skins and a pair of wild boar tusks. Perfect wild boar skin, grade 8, high-grade leather harvested from the wild boar king's body, can be used to make defensive equipment. Rare wild boar tusks, grade 7, high-grade material harvested from the wild boar king's body, can be used to make accessories. After organizing the spoils of war, the group began to return to the sawmill. Chapter 13. In the evening, the militia squad returned from leveling up. The village canteen had already started cooking, and smoke was rising from the chimneys. After a busy day, the villagers gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, chatting about their daily lives. Back at the Lord's mansion, the second child immediately rushed out and took the horse rope and weapons from Ouyang Shuo's hands. After greeting everyone, Ouyang Shuo returned to his room and went offline. The morning sun was warm. Running on the green road in the district and breathing in the fresh air, the exhaustion of the night immediately dissipated. Today was the weekend. Yesterday, Ouyang Shuo had promised to take Binger on an outing. In the last 10 days, he logged into the game early every night and didn't spend time with her. The little princess was already a little angry. In the winter suburbs, the cold wind was blowing. Fortunately, the winter in Lingnan wasn't cold. It was similar to autumn in other places. The grass gradually turned yellow. In the distance, Binger was like a little bird. She spread her arms and flew around happily, imitating the sound of a plane. Ouyang Shuo was sitting on the grass with a picnic mat under him. The mat was filled with chips, cakes, fruit juices, and all kinds of delicious food. Binger, come and eat something, Ouyang Shuo shouted. The little girl imitated the diving posture of a plane and rushed into Ouyang Shuo's arms. She sat on Ouyang Shuo's lap and wrapped her arms around his neck. She sweetly acted like a spoiled child. Brother, the suburbs are really fun. Sister Xiaoyu didn't come. It's a big loss. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, Your sister Xiaoyu sleeps in on the weekends. Has Binger been good recently? Have you listened to Sister Xiaoyu? The little girl nodded vigorously and said innocently, Binger has been good recently. Sister Xiaoyu tells me stories every day and accompanies me to do my homework. She's very good to me. Ouyang Shuo smiled. Since Big Sister Xiaoyu treats you so well, shouldn't Binger bring back some gifts for Big Sister Xiaoyu? Binger cutely nodded. Then she frowned and scratched her little head. She cutely said, Yes, you're right. But what gift should I bring for Sister Xiaoyu? Ouyang Shuo pinched her little face and coaxed her. How about this? Brother Xiaoyu will teach you how to weave a wreath. Binger will personally weave a flower garland for her. Sister Xiaoyu will definitely like it. Binger immediately clapped her hands and smiled. Okay. Big brother, hurry up and teach Binger. Also, Binger has to wear one too. Thus, the siblings got up and found a pile of emerald green grass stalks. Step by step, Ouyang Shuo taught her how to weave the grass stalks into rings according to the size of her head. Then he found some green leaves and wild flowers and placed them on the grass wreath, and the wreath was finished. He placed the flower garland he made on Binger's head. The little girl stood up and spun around a few times, asking her brother if he was pretty. When they got home in the afternoon, Binger put the garland she made on Xiaoya's head the moment she entered the door. She said fawningly, Sister, this is made by Binger myself. Son Xiaoya was touched by the little girl. She hugged Binger and kissed her a few times. She said happily, Binger is such a good girl. You still remember to bring me a gift when you go out to play. I didn't dote on you for nothing. Binger didn't want to give up and kissed Xiaoya back. She hugged Xiaoya and didn't let go. Ouyang Shuo stood to the side and watched the two beauties play with each other. He was full of happiness. When he went online again, it was the beginning of a new day in the game. He played with Heya, who was already running around in the yard. The little guy grew very fast. In less than 10 days, his body had grown a size. As usual, he practiced the great spear for an hour before walking to the meeting hall. With the completion of the basic construction of the first-level village, Ouyang Shu already had a draft in his mind on what to do next. This time, 8 people were summoned to the meeting. Apart from the fixed 5 people, the newly appointed clerk Gu Xiuwen, the soon-to-be appointed shipyard director Zheng Dehai, and the original Zhao family ditch mason Zhao Duong were also allowed to participate in the meeting. Before this, Zhao Duong had always been the assistant of the construction team leader Zhao Dexin. This time, Ouyang Shuo had given him a new appointment. After Ouyang Shuo sat down, he directly said, "Everyone, after 10 days of hard work, apart from the farmland that has yet to be reclaimed, all the other basic buildings in Shanghai Village have been completed. We have even completed 4 additional buildings. I believe that everyone here has their own ideas on how to develop the territory. This is also the main topic of this meeting. Before we discuss the specific plans, I would like to ask the clerk, Gu Xiuwen, to report the situation of the territory's population so that everyone has a clear idea of what to do." Gu Xiuwen stood up and bowed. He said, "According to your orders, Xiuwen has been compiling the territory's population for the past 2 days. As of today, the territory has a total of 162 people. It is estimated that it will reach the upper limit of 200 people in 4 days. Apart from the management personnel present, the territory also had 10 militiamen and 13 skilled people, including 4 shipbuilding apprentices. There are 30 lumberjacks, 10 quarry workers, and 90 construction workers. The above 3 types of workers are all part-time farmers." Ouyang Shuo nodded approvingly. He was satisfied with his work efficiency. He then said, "From the distribution of the territory's population, there are 2 main problems. The first is that the territory's population management is too extensive, which is not conducive to fine management. The next step is to divide the farmers into 5 categories: farmers, workers, fishermen, herdsmen, and craftsmen. All farmers, vegetable farmers, and fruit farmers will be classified as farmers. All lumberjacks, quarrymen, and miners will be classified as workers. All fishermen will be classified as fishermen. All herdsmen and breeders will be classified as herdsmen. All stonemasons, masons, and carpenters will be classified as craftsmen. After the division, we will verify the corresponding household registration certificates. Once the household registration is established, no one can change it without the Lord's permission. At the same time, we need to adjust the residential areas so that the same type of people live together. For this reason, I have decided to set up a new organization to handle this matter. The organization will be called the Household Registration Office." At this point, Ouyang Shuo paused and looked at Gu Xiuwen with a smile. "Xiuwen, you did well. I am very satisfied. You will be in charge of the Household Registration Office." Gu Xiuwen hurriedly got up and said gratefully, "Xiuwen thanks you for your trust. I will not let you down." System notification. Gu Xiuwen has been put in an important position by the Lord. Loyalty has increased by 5 points. Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and continued, "There is another problem that is even more serious. The number of skilled people is too small. Skill-type talents couldn't be waited for. We need to nurture them ourselves. We encourage them to recruit apprentices and improve their living conditions. Master Zheng Dehai has done a good job in this area. He recruited 4 apprentices in one go and set a good example. For this reason, I have decided to appoint Master Zheng as the director of the elementary shipyard." Zheng Dehai also got up to express his gratitude. "Zheng Dehai thanks you for your trust. I will not let you down." System notification. Zheng Dehai has been put in an important position by the Lord. Loyalty has increased by 5 points. Ouyang Shuo continued, "I will take this opportunity to announce a few personnel changes. The logistics department will be officially upgraded to the material reserve department. Cui Yingyu, who is in charge of the logistics department, will be appointed as the director of the material reserve department. Zhao Yufang, the director of the elementary sawmill, and Zheng Shanpao, the director of the elementary quarry, will be appointed as the deputy directors. Set up the Department of Land Reclamation, responsible for the reclamation of farmland, orchards, vegetable plots, and other agricultural land. Zhao Daxian, the former captain of the construction team, will be the director. The construction team was upgraded to the construction division, which was responsible for all the construction work in the territory. Zhao Duong was appointed as the deputy director and was temporarily in charge of the construction division. Set up the salt field department to be in charge of drying salt from seawater. I will be personally in charge of it for the time being. After a series of appointments, the administrative structure at the village level became more standardized and orderly, and administrative efficiency would be further improved. From the way they were appointed, the 3 people from the Zhao family ravine were placed in an important position, occupying half of the territory. This was because they were already competent enough, and it was also Ouyang Shua's extra care for this group of territory elders. Zhao Daxian was in charge of the Department of Land Reclamation. He was making the best use of his talents when he returned to his field of expertise, agriculture. Although Zhao Yufeng was only a carpenter and was not cultured, he was very quick-witted and very respectful towards Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua was prepared to focus on nurturing him. Once the private school in the territory was established, he would send him to further his studies. Zhao Diwang's ability was somewhat lacking, and he was not yet able to take on such a heavyweight department like the construction division. Unfortunately, there were limited talents in the territory, so they could only choose the tallest among the shortest. After everyone received their orders, Ouyang Shua continued to preside over the meeting. The personnel adjustments have been completed. Next up is the development plan for the territory. Before advancing to a second-class village, there are 2 major things that need to be done. The first is the reclamation of farmland. The Department of Land Reclamation will be fully responsible for it, and we need to reclaim at least 500 mu of farmland. The second is the construction of the coastal salt pans. The salt pans department will be fully responsible for it, and the shipyard will cooperate with the transportation of personnel and supplies. The militia team will be responsible for security. After that, according to the development plan of the territory, the Household Registration Office will work with the heads of the 3 divisions to determine the distribution ratio of the 5 types of personnel, as well as the subsequent distribution plan. In principle, the distribution will be based on the ratio of 3, 3, 2, 1, 1. When he finally finished explaining everything, Ouyang Shua looked around at everyone and said, "That's the general content. If anyone has any thoughts or questions, you can raise them now." Gu Xiuan was the first to stand up and ask, "Sir, I have a question. Currently, there is no herdsman in the territory except for second child. At the same time, there are no livestock in the territory, so how do we determine the number of herdsmen?" Ouyang Shua laughed and replied, "Good question. First, put second child's household registration in the Lord's residence, and there is no need for him to be a herdsman. Second, although there are no livestock in the territory, we obtained a manual of wild boar domestication techniques with General Sher's help yesterday. The domestication of wild boars will be the beginning of the territory's animal husbandry exhibition. Next, the militia will be responsible for the acquisition of wild boars, and the construction department will be responsible for the construction of pig pens. The reserve department will be responsible for the training and management of pig rearing technicians." Gu Xiuan acknowledged and sat down. He was already clear about the Lord's plans. Chuang Yu then stood up and asked, "Sir, I also have a question. Among the various resources in the territory, only wood and stone are produced. Grain and iron, or are only exported and not imported? What is Sir's plan?" As expected of a merchant, and you had a strategic vision when it came to the management of resources. She would not be limited to muddling along. Ouyang Shua nodded in satisfaction and replied, "Ingyo's question is also very good. I will first answer the question about grain. There are only 2 ways to obtain grain. One is to buy it from the market, which requires a lot of financial support. The other is to develop animal husbandry and fishing. I have already explained the short-term plan for animal husbandry very clearly, so I will not repeat it. As for fishing, we will prioritize the development of offshore fishing. The shipyard will prioritize the construction of fishing boats and rent them to fishermen to encourage them to go out to sea to fish. As for the management of fishermen, we will temporarily put them under the management of the Reserve Department. I will also answer the question about iron ore. Currently, the iron ore in the territory is mainly used to forge farming tools and other kinds of tools, so the demand is not big. After the territory is promoted to a second-class village, we will start the construction. I suggest that the Reserve Department start the preparatory work now and arrange for personnel to find suitable iron mines within the territory. After Ouyang Shuo finished speaking, Shi Wansui, who had been silent all this while, stood up and said, "My lord, according to my lord's arrangements, the militia has two tasks at the same time. One is to protect the salt pans that are about to be built, and the other is to find piglets. Currently, there are only 10 people in the militia, and they are also responsible for the safety of the territory. I wonder if my lord has any specific arrangements? This is indeed a problem. How about this? I will temporarily appoint you as the supervisor of the salt pans. You will represent me in charge of the training of seaside salt drying technicians and the construction of the salt pans. During this time, you will personally be stationed at the salt pans construction site. At the same time, divide the militia into 2 small teams. I will appoint Zhang Dinyo as the captain of the first small team, and he will be responsible for the mission of finding piglets. I will appoint Dog 3 as the captain of the second small team, and he will be responsible for patrolling the territory. After answering Shi Wansui's question, there were no more questions. Ouyang Shuo took the opportunity to announce the end of the meeting. Chapter 14. After arranging the work in the territory, Ouyang Shuo suddenly seemed to have nothing to do. Thinking of the statue of Matsu that he bought in the market, he suddenly had an idea. The village temple was built in the southeast corner of the territory. As the basic building of a level 3 village, it occupied a large area, and its area was comparable to the current Lord's Mansion. As a village temple, the village temple only had one main hall. In front of the main hall was a square surrounded by stone walls. It was extremely grand. The main hall was just beyond the square. In the middle of the main hall was the altar where the wooden statue of Mazu and 2 statues of gods were enshrined. In front of the altar, incense burned, making it look extremely solemn. When players built the village temple, they could choose which deity or deities to worship. Without a doubt, Ouyang Shuo chose Mazu and Mazu's 1,000-mile eyes and 1,000-mile ears. Ouyang Shuo exited the main hall and arrived at the center of the plaza. He took out the statue of Mazu, incomplete. System notification. It has been detected that players say you have no clothes has a special item. Statue of Mazu, broken. This item is extremely compatible with the current village temple. Do you want to use it? Use. With a flash of white light, the incomplete statue of Mazu flew up from his hand and hovered in the air. The statue gradually grew larger and finally became a 96-meter-tall white marble statue of Mazu, landing in the center of the square. Mazu held a Rui scepter in her hand, stepping on reefs and waves, graceful and imposing. System notice. The Shanghai Village Temple has been blessed by the Mazu statue, and its name has been automatically changed to Mazu Temple. Its stats have been greatly increased. Please check for yourself. System notice. Congratulations to player not wearing anything for establishing a Mazu temple in the wilderness and spreading the faith of Mazu. Special reward. 200 achievement points, 400 reputation points. System notification. Congratulations, player not wearing's reputation value has exceeded 1,000 points and has been promoted to famous far and near. You have automatically obtained the silver title. Celebrity increases historical character favorability by 10 points. Ouyang Shuo hurriedly looked at the Mazu Temple's stats to see what surprises it could bring him. Name, Mazu Temple, sealed, type, hidden building function. Spread the faith of Mazu, increase resident satisfaction by 20, and increase the popularity of the territory by 5. Characteristics: see God's blessing, 40% increase in resistance to storms when sailing at sea. Evaluation: this is a sealed Mazu temple, which has a faint trace of Mazu's divine power. Offering incense would help in breaking the seal. My God, it really is a hidden building. He had really hit the jackpot this time. The rarity of a hidden building was comparable to a divine artifact. In the 5 years of his previous life, there were no more than 5 hidden buildings that everyone was familiar with. Ouyang Shua estimated that there would be no more than 10 hidden buildings in his territory, even if there were lords who intentionally concealed their territory's buildings. Mazu was one. Mazu was god. It was also one of the Mazu gods. Mazu was Shui Mazu one. A Mazu god was God. The Mazu of Mazu. A temple was a god, which he was Mazu. The change in Mazu temple attracted the attention of the villagers. The 9.6-meter tall statue of Mazu stood out among the small wooden houses in the first-grade village. It was impossible not to notice it. One Shuang Temple. Temple inn of the village. Mazu Shan Village, one god in one god. At this point, the faith of Mazu had officially taken root in Shanghai Village. It slowly spread to the entire Lianzhou Basin and would eventually spread to the entire southern coast. Shuoyang Shan was in of the village. Yang Temple, he was returned. Mu to the Shu. After leaving Mazu Temple, Ouyang Shua went straight to the military camp. Shi Wan Sui was in the army camp. The militia was divided into 2 teams, led by Zhang Dainiu and Li Sangu. Zhang Dainiu and Li Sangu were excited. They were proud. Even Buttface, who was usually gloomy, had a smile on his face. Ouyang Shua didn't have the time to accompany them in showing off. He handed the seawater drying technique manual to Shi Wan Sui. Then he asked the first team to follow him to the west to look for wild boars. The team stopped at the lumberyard. After storing the war horses, Ouyang Shua called over 2 lumberjacks. He asked them to build a cage with a wooden board and put hay in it. 2 militias carried the cage to the area where the wild boars were active. Their journey was rather peaceful. If they came across any wild dogs or wolves, they would deal with them quickly. After all, the militia had already risen to level 5 and had gone through an entire day of battle yesterday. He was no longer a novice. They didn't know if they were lucky or if baby beasts were rare. They met a lot of wild boars in the morning, but they didn't see a single one with a baby. After a bad start, Ouyang Shua's stubborn temper flared up. He didn't go back to the lumberyard. He ate some food and ordered the soldiers to rest in the forest. An hour later, they were ready for battle. Taking advantage of the break, he seriously pondered for a moment to see if there were any details that he had overlooked that he had not grasped, so his efforts were futile. Suddenly, the wild boar king from yesterday flashed in his mind. Yes, the wild boar taming technique manual dropped from the wild boar king. Did it mean that the baby boars were nearby? No matter what, Ouyang Shua was going to bring them around in the afternoon. It was better than running around like headless flies. An hour later, he waved at Zhang Dainiu, who was not far away. Dainiu, come here for a moment. Zhang Dainiu ran over and said, Sir, you were looking for me? Yes, we're going to change our strategy. I've decided to go to the place where the wild boar king appeared yesterday. That area might not be very peaceful. Tell the brothers below to keep their spirits up. Don't drop the ball for me. Understand? Yeah, go and wake everyone up. We'll set out immediately. The team rushed to the place where Shi Wan Sui and the wild boar king fought. The scene was still a mess. Ouyang Shua took the lead, and Zhang Dainiu followed behind. The 6 of them formed an attack formation and slowly advanced along the wild boar king's tracks. After walking for almost half an hour, Ouyang Shua started to doubt if his speculation was right. A humph-humph sound came from not far away, and he couldn't help but feel refreshed. It was too familiar. This sound was very similar to the wild boar king's. He recognized it immediately. Could there be another wild boar king? They advanced carefully. After walking for about 10 meters, a cave appeared in front of them. The cave was 3 meters high and 2 meters wide. Through the cave, they could see a huge wild boar lying in the cave. This wild boar was bigger than a normal wild boar, but it couldn't compare to the wild boar king's huge body. What made them even happier was that beside the wild boar, there were more than 10 piglets lying in a messy row. Ouyang Shua used elementary detection to check the wild boar's attributes. Name: mutated wild boar, elite, level 8 skills, brutal charge evaluation. This is a mutated female wild boar that was snatched by the wild boar king to breed. It turned out to be the wife and children of the wild boar king. With Ouyang Shua's current strength, it would be difficult for him to face a level 8 elite monster head-on. The simplest method was to make the militia form a circle before the wild boar noticed them. At the same time, they would throw their spears at the wild boar. Even if it didn't die, it would still be seriously injured. The problem was that it would be easy to accidentally kill the piglets lying next to the wild boar. It wasn't worth it. The other method was to have a militia that ran fast to lure the wild boar out of the cave. The rest of the people would lie in ambush on both sides. When the wild boar rushed into the ambush, everyone would attack together. They would definitely be able to kill it. There was a certain amount of risk in doing this. After all, they would have to fight the wild boar at close range. If they weren't careful, they could be hit by the wild boar. At this critical moment, Ouyang Shua made a prompt decision and decided to use the second method. The first method had a high chance of accidentally killing the wild boar. He didn't dare to believe that these recruits would be able to throw their spears accurately. For this group of wild boars, it was worth it to take a little risk. Wealth comes from danger. Besides, as long as they weren't seriously injured or killed on the spot, Dr. Song's medicine could still save them. The plan was decided. They arranged for a militia to lure the wild boar while the rest of the people lay in ambush in the grass on both sides. The militia picked up a stone from the ground and ran to the entrance of the cave. He threw the stone at the wild boar. The wild boar was attacked for no reason. How could it bear it? It suddenly got up and rushed out of the cave. It vowed to tear this little thief into pieces. When the militia saw the wild boar get up, they quickly ran back. Soon, the wild boar ran into the ambush. The 5 of them quickly dashed out from the bushes and fiercely stabbed the wild boar with their weapons. They were not greedy. After stabbing the wild boar, they immediately pulled out their weapons and quickly retreated. At this critical moment, an accident happened. A militia's spear was stuck in the wild boar's bones and couldn't be pulled out for a while. When he reacted, he was ready to give up his spear and directly retreat. The angry wild boar had already reacted. It turned its head and was about to rush forward. At this time, Ouyang Shua on the other side also reacted. He didn't retreat. Instead, he stabbed the spear in his hand into the wild boar's body. The wild boar was attacked from behind. Sure enough, it stopped and was ready to turn around to deal with the bastard who attacked it from behind. Unfortunately, it had lost its last chance to seriously injure the enemy. When Jean Denio and the others saw Ouyang Shua rushed forward again, they immediately turned around and surrounded the wild boar. After another round of stabbing, the wild boar finally couldn't stand it anymore and fell to the ground. Ouyang Shua ordered the militia not to act rashly. They formed a circle around the wild boar and waited for the wild boar to bleed to death. He knew that a seriously injured wild boar was very dangerous. Its dying blow was not a joke. Excellent hunters had enough patience. Those who were impulsive would have long been fed to the wild boar. System notification. Congratulations to player not wearing for successfully killing a mutated wild boar, elite. Reward: 1,000 experience points. System notification. Player not wearing has leveled up to level 8. With a flash of white light, Ouyang Shua smoothly rose to level 8. The militia also rose to level 7. They went forward to collect the wild boar's carcass and obtained 2 wild boar skins. Perfect wild boar skin, grade 6. High-grade leather collected from the wild boar king. Can be used to make defensive equipment. After dealing with the wild boar, everyone could finally collect the spoils of war with peace of mind. The group of people arrived at the cave entrance. The dozen or so little pigs were huddled together, not knowing what to do. Ouyang Shua carefully counted. There were a total of 12 pigs. It was really a big harvest. Without saying anything, the 6 people surrounded the little pigs. In a few moves, they captured the group of helpless little fellows and put them into cages. Just as everyone was about to walk out of the cave, Ouyang Shua suddenly noticed something flashing in a corner of the cave. He went over to search and found a black ring. Name: Ring of Courage, Iron. Attribute: increases troop morale by 5. Evaluation: a ring with a single effect. If used properly, it will have unexpected effects. Among the iron equipment, the attributes are considered good. It is also a relatively rare accessory. Ouyang Shua immediately put it on the middle finger of his right hand. At this moment, a system announcement sounded, causing Ouyang Shua to be stunned. System announcement: congratulations to player Di Chun for becoming the first lord in the China region to upgrade his territory to a level 2 village. Special reward: 1,100 achievement points. System announcement: congratulations to player Di Chun for becoming the first lord in the China region to upgrade his territory to a level 2 village. Special reward: 1,100 achievement points. System announcement: congratulations to player Di Chun for becoming the first lord in the China region to upgrade his territory to a level 2 village. Special reward: 1,100 achievement points. Di Chun was the representative of a powerful political group in reality. He was one of the 6 hegemons of Handan City. He was the first player to establish a village in the China region. Now, he was the first lord to upgrade his territory to a level 2 village. For these representatives of the major powers, there was only one reason that restricted them from upgrading their territory at this stage. That was the lack of building blueprints. To them, the problem of Ouyang Shua's population was not a problem at all. They could just let adventurer players settle down and fill up the population in an instant. The inertia of history was still strong. Ouyang Shua was a butterfly that had been reborn. He still had a long way to go before he could cause a tsunami. In the next few days, the other 5 members of the 6 hegemons of Handan City would also upgrade their villages to level 2. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.